Chapter 405. Fog Isle. Sitting on the ocean of corpses, it's the only land in this world. It's also the only place in this world that has life. Even though the climate here is extremely cold, the temperature stays below zero all year round, but it's still the place that all humans dream of. Every world, as long as they know about it, understand it, they'll crave it. It's the legendary Isle of Fate. Unfortunately, to reach this place, you must first die once. That's an extremely painful death. Every person who arrives at Fog Isle will appear in the ocean of corpses. In the ocean, there will be monsters that specifically counter those who arrive. After being killed by the monsters, the bodies of those who arrive will drift in the depths of the ocean. Their souls will be imprisoned inside the bodies, forever enduring the suffocating pain of the deep sea. If one day the bodies can escape the fixed ocean currents and make it to Fog Isle, that would be a miracle of fate. For those who perform miracles, even if only their bodies remain, Fog Isle will still grant them a new life. Sue was currently on Fog Isle. When she first flew into the sea of fog, she arrived here. She didn't experience death and arrived at Fog Isle. This was the first time in 100 years. Her luck made countless people jealous. Not to mention, after an identity check, people found that her identity was something that Fog Isle couldn't refuse. Her parents once sacrificed their lives for Fog Isle. Although they were two unassuming people, Fog Isle was indebted to them. Because of that, their daughter, an orphan with a lucky fate, Fog Isle naturally wouldn't refuse. At this time, Sue was in Guru Isa's room. "Since you've become my disciple, you must learn one thing," the black-robed woman spoke. "And that is to enjoy pain." She reached her hand out, drew a card, and spoke. "Let us see what kind of punishment you'll receive before you die, and what kind of pleasant voice you'll give me." Sue stayed silent. Is it still not enough? Is it not time yet? While she was thinking, a knock came from the void of space at the top of the mountain. Sue silently clenched her fist. Finally, the arranged matter had arrived. "Who is it?" The black-robed woman spoke in displeasure. In the air, the invisible darkness scattered towards the sky, as if a heavy gate had suddenly opened. 2 rows of ancient armors carried iron shields and long swords as they walked in with clanking sounds. There was no one in the armor. This seems to be an unknown spell, or perhaps a god's chosen skill. The armor walked out without stopping and landed on the empty space at the top of the mountain. "Professor," I said, "sorry to bother you," the leader of the armors said in a low voice. "Enforcers, what are you doing here?" the black-robed woman asked. "We suspect this apprentice has done something inappropriate," the armor said. "Oh, was there such a thing? Is it serious?" "We might have to use the death penalty," the armor said. "All right, please go ahead." The black-robed woman pondered for a moment and said, "With her permission," the 2 rows of armors came to Sue side. "Sue," the leader of the armored men asked in a low voice. "It's me. The House of Discipline summons you for interrogation." Sue did not even raise her head. Her heart was calm. This was what he had expected, but he was still a little late. She said, "Why me again? Haven't they already been reprimanded by the instructors for framing me multiple times?" The armor replied, "This time, you've committed a crime punishable by death. So all 7 instructors are here," the black-robed woman curiously asked. "Alerting 7 instructors, another crime punishable by death. Seems like you've done something else that I don't know about." Sue looked at her and begged, "Please save me." The black-robed woman was a bit hesitant at first, but as she heard that, she lightly smiled and waved her hand. "That's fine. Go and accept your fate. I won't have to worry about it." "Sue, please follow me to the House of Discipline. Otherwise, we will have to use force," the armor coldly said. Sue didn't answer right away, but being surrounded by 7 to 8 armors, she had no chance to escape. Sue, on the other hand, was no longer panicking. "Please lead the way. I also want to see how they intend to deal with me," she calmly said. She followed the armor into the sky, disappearing into the mountain range. The black-robed woman stood still for a while, muttering, "The House of Discipline? Only those who are invited can enter. Very well, it's a good thing that I don't have to do it myself." Leaving Guru Isa's room, Su Cher followed the 2 rows of armors, passing through a floating bridge suspended in the middle of a bottomless abyss. The cold wind continued to blow. She controlled her body and tried to avoid looking at the giant spiders in the abyss. Behind a floating bridge was a wide underground tunnel. Every few dozen meters, she could see burning torches stuck on the wall. They lit up the darkness, dispelling the chill in the humid air. Even with the 7 instructors waiting, Su Cher still walked slowly without using any power. This was in accordance with the rules. Because the Institute was built in the sky, the entire building was covered in anti-magic power. Students were also not allowed to use their powers in public. The areas where they could use their powers were clearly marked. This way, the Institute, hidden deep in fog, wouldn't attract the attention of powerful monsters from the infinite worlds. It took Su Cher about 15 minutes to reach the House of Discipline. The majestic House of Discipline looked like a Gothic building from the medieval era. Opening the door of the House of Discipline, there was a straight path that led to a throne on top of the stairs. Sitting on the throne was a withered corpse with its head drooped. The corpse was wearing a blood-red robe, leaning on the throne without moving. Blood flowed like a river, forming a magnificent sight behind him. The river of blood took up all the space behind the corpse, filling up the entire space from the ground to the ceiling. The surging blood flowed without a sound, hitting each other and splashing everywhere. The entire river of blood flowed in the air, never touching the ground. A single person with a river of blood behind him. This was the legendary figure of the Institute, Lord Bloodcloak, the sentinel of the Institute. On both sides of the path, there were several dozen statues of people. These statues all had different postures, giving off a sense of solemnity. A few women wearing robes stood in the middle of the path, motionless, not even daring to breathe too loudly. As they saw Su Cher come in, they looked up at her with pride in their eyes. The 2 rows of armors knelt down on one knee and reported, "Sentinel, 7 elders, the person has been brought." The corpse on the throne looked up and spoke. "You may leave." Yes, the armors stood up, slightly bowed, then left the House of Discipline. Su Cher, Lord Bloodcloak, leaned back on the throne and asked with a hoarse voice, "You've committed a crime punishable by death. What else do you have to say?" Su Cher looked at him and naturally bowed to greet him. She replied, "Sentinel, sir, I don't even know what my crime is." Lord Bloodcloak replied, "Hiding heretical techniques." Su Cher smiled and replied, "Heretical techniques? I've never heard of any heretical techniques, but someone saw you reading a heretical technique booklet." Lord Bloodcloak replied. "Then ask her to come out and confront me." Su Cher replied. Seeing how confident she was, Lord Bloodcloak's tone calmed down and asked, "What do you have to say for yourselves?" The girls standing in the middle of the path exchanged glances. "One night, when I was resting, I saw her reading a small booklet, so focused that she didn't even notice me approaching," one of the girls said. Another girl added, "When she was flipping through the booklet, I happened to see a certain sentence." "What sentence?" Lord Bloodcloak asked. "The realm of cultivation is divided into several levels. First is chi training, then foundation establishment," the girl answered. Suddenly, from the dozens of statues on both sides of the path, 7 of them spoke up. "Heretical techniques. Heretical techniques. Heretical techniques. Heretical techniques. Heretical techniques. Heretical techniques. Heretical techniques." Lord Bloodcloak's voice became sharp. "Su Cher, cultivating heretical techniques is a crime punishable by death. Do you have anything else to say?" A long, rusty blade floated in the air, trembling uncontrollably. Countless screams of pain resounded from the blade. The girls exchanged glances and saw the excitement in each other's eyes. This guy who made it to Fog Isle alive is about to die. They then looked at Su Cher, wanting to see her expression of fear before her death. Su Cher only smiled and calmly spoke. "One night, when I was resting, I saw them flipping through a booklet. There was a sentence inside. The realm of cultivation is divided into several levels. First is chi training, then foundation establishment." They were probably afraid that I would tell on them, so they went ahead and reported it to the elders. The girls all said at once, "You're talking nonsense." "Bullshit. It was you. Sue Cher clasped her hands behind her back and casually spoke. That's the truth. Lord Bloodcloak went silent. Seems like someone doesn't take me seriously and dare to come to the House of Law to deceive me and the 7 gurus. He let out a creepy laugh and said, Whoever dares to deceive us, the price won't just be a heavy crime. He reached his hand out and picked up a scroll from the throne. A blood-red scroll. Sue Cher, do not resist. As soon as Lord Bloodcloak said so, the scroll lit up in a bloody glow. As the scroll burned, it scattered into several blood-red shadows that circled around Sue Cher before returning to the throne. A small booklet appeared in Lord Bloodcloak's hand. In your resting room, in a newly built secret compartment, there's a booklet like this, Lord Bloodcloak spoke. That's the one of the girls screamed. Sue Cher stayed silent and said nothing. Lord Bloodcloak picked up the booklet and flipped through it. His voice suddenly became gentle. Indeed, Sue Cher's parents died in that war, sacrificing their lives for the Institute. This booklet is her mother's notes from that year. I remember that girl. She was a smart student. Let me take a closer look. I found it. It's this lesson, the content about the soul point's origin of the infinite worlds. At the time, I was the one who taught the class. This notebook recorded my understanding and opinion of the world origin. She actually recorded it all. Down, Lord Bloodcloak's voice became a bit warmer. As well as her questions and my answers. That's right. That's how I usually answer them. What a good student. Chapter 406. This girl was an orphan. Both her parents were my students, both of whom gave up their lives for Fog-Isle. Their daughter was lost in some unknown world, only just returned here not too long ago, yet she was falsely accused and might lose her life because of this. A helpless orphan girl, waiting for her life and death to be judged. Lord Bloodcloak stayed silent for a while, then spoke. You are innocent, Sue Cher. Thank you, Sentinel. What else do you have to say about today's events? Lord Bloodcloak asked. It's here. Now. Sue Cher pursed her lips, a bit hesitant. Can I ask a small question? She asked. Of course, you can ask anything you want. Lord Bloodcloak was a bit more lenient today. Thank you, Sue Cher carefully said. This is my only chance to retaliate, so I have to take it. I'm also a person, a perfectly fine person. I want to stay alive here. You can't do this to me anymore. You can't bully me anymore. If anyone tries to take my life again, for the sake of fairness, I hope that Sentinel will also search them, Sue Cher said. That's how it should be, Lord Bloodcloak agreed. Several blood-red streaks flew from the air, circled around the girls once, then threw a bunch of junk on the ground. Among the miscellaneous items, there was an identical booklet lying there. Lord Bloodcloak picked up the booklet and casually flipped through it. Ah! He chuckled. I was fooled and almost killed my student's daughter. Gurus, please take a look. Lord Bloodcloak tossed the booklet out. The booklet circled around the statues once before landing on the ground. Heretic, the statues all spoke in a low voice. No, we don't have this booklet. This must be a frame-up. Gurus, I really didn't know this would happen. This isn't mine, the girl screamed in fear. Practicing heretic is a capital crime. One of the girls suddenly started crying. I was wrong. I was just jealous that she was a quick learner and managed to reach this place alive. She's also an orphan, so it doesn't matter if she gets bullied. I didn't think this would happen. As soon as she started crying, the other girls also started crying. They knew the consequences of practicing evil arts. This was exactly what they were prepared to give him. At this moment, they finally understood what they were going to do to others. Lord Bloodcloak asked, Gurus, what do you think? After a moment of silence, the statues said, You can decide. The Devil Lord thought for a while and asked Sue Cher, What do you think? Sue Cher looked at the girls. The girls all knelt down in front of her and cried for mercy. Sue Cher then looked at the messy booklet that had fallen into the dust. That was the booklet that Gu Qingshan gave her, the real booklet. In a desperate situation, she had no choice but to use this booklet to plot a trap in order to gain a chance of survival. Now, clusters of flames appeared on the booklet, rapidly and irrevocably burning the booklet to ashes. Gu Qingshan seemed to be whispering into his ear. The booklet is a type of cultivation technique. This is the most important thing. You must practice it with all your heart, cultivate well, quickly become stronger. The future of this world isn't very good. You must have the ability to protect yourself. Do your best. Sue Cher was stunned. She had lost the booklet forever. Sentinel, is my opinion useful? She asked. You are the victim. Of course it is useful, Lord Bloodcloak replied. The girls' cries became louder. They loudly begged Sue Cher for mercy. Sue Cher muttered, practicing evil arts and fooling a guru. I remember that you should be fed to the abyssal spiders. Then that's it, Lord Bloodcloak nodded. He waved his hand. Several white silk threads hung down from the ceiling. The girls and their cries were all sealed off by the threads. Colorful giant spiders descended from the ceiling. These giant spiders reached out their thin legs, grabbed the white silk threads, and spun them around, turning them into mummies. The spiders brought the mummies up to the ceiling and happily went out the window. The verdict is over. You may return, Sue Cher, Lord Bloodcloak said. He thought for a bit, then continued. I remember that during this trial, the most talented people were the food for you and those spiders. Just now they're no longer here. But you can't relax, you must continue to work hard. The mummy patiently guided her. He suddenly put a scroll into the void of space. The scroll disappeared and reappeared in front of Sue Cher. Sir, what is this? Sue Cher doubtfully asked. It's for you, Sue Cher smiled and curtsied. Thank you, Sentinel. You're welcome. Your parents were my students. I didn't take care of you at all and instead dragged you into a trap that almost killed you. This is my small apology, Lord Bloodcloak said. Sue Cher didn't even look at the scroll and accepted it. A single scroll will affect me greatly. I won't refuse it, but if I become successful in the future, I won't forget your kindness, she said with a serious expression. When you first enter Fog Isle, before awakening, no one will have any power. Unless you steal it from others or receive a gift from a high-ranking guru, you won't be able to obtain any power. This scroll will be a great help to Sue Cher. Not only did she accept it, but she even said such a thing. Lord Bloodcloak was a bit surprised, but also happy. This little girl's actions are straightforward. Her words aren't fake, and she knows how to repay someone. Very good. Are you confident in the trial? Lord Bloodcloak asked with concern. Unlike the black-robe woman, right now, he was truly concerned. I'm not confident, Sue Cher answered. Lord Bloodcloak smiled. You made it to Fog Isle alive. Fate favors you. No need to worry. Sue Cher hesitated a bit, then spoke her mind. I relied on a certain tool to make it to Fog Isle alive, she continued. In truth, I myself don't have the corresponding talent to make it to Fog Isle alive. That's why I have no confidence in the trial at all. Hearing that, Lord Bloodcloak was a bit surprised. He could feel that she was speaking from the bottom of her heart. The daughter of a student, an orphan, was speaking from the bottom of her heart. After so many years, who dared to be so close to me? Lord Bloodcloak stayed silent for a bit, then finally spoke. Sue Cher, I'll tell you the truth. Please go ahead. If fate doesn't favor you, you won't be able to reach Fog. I'll no matter what tool you use. Do you think there aren't any monsters in the sky? For the past 100 years, you're the only one who managed to pass through all the gaps and arrive at Fog Isle when the monsters weren't paying attention. Sue Cher was stunned. Is that so? I abandoned my previous fate and used that car to come to this world. And the result? I was transported to the sea of corpses. I was almost eaten by the monsters in the sea. After coming to Fog Isle, I was envied, isolated, and pushed aside by the other apprentices. Guru Isa wanted my life. Is this fate favoring me? It doesn't seem like it at all. But a peerless character like Lord Bloodcloak wouldn't lie. Sue Cher was a bit hesitant. Lord Bloodcloak looked at her expression and understood. Lord Bloodcloak continued. As soon as anyone arrives at Fog Isle, their fate will be rewritten, life or death. It all comes from the desire in your heart, as well as the call and resistance to fate. No matter what tool you rely on, it is a gift from your new fate. Otherwise, fate would have destroyed it. Sue Cher seriously listened to him and nodded. Lord Bloodcloak seems to feel like he said too much, so he waved his hand. You may leave. Prepare for the trial. Yes. Thank you, Sentinel. Thank you, Guru. Sue Cher bowed and slowly left. She slowed down her steps and calmly left the House of Law. After she left, the giant statues suddenly disappeared without a trace. The only person left in the House of Law was Lord Bloodcloak sitting on his throne. Lord Bloodcloak sat there blankly for a while, muttering to himself. Never died, but still exudes the aura of a new fate. What a lucky one. Souchere headed towards her own resting room. The top 3 candidates of the apprentice trial will receive a special reward. They can freely choose their gurus, rather than being chosen by the gurus themselves. These 3 spots will soon cause countless people to fight over them. All sorts of methods will be used. And I, as the only person to make it to Fog Isle alive in the last 100 years, will most likely receive one of the spots. Everyone's eyes were filled with jealousy. They were thinking of ways to deal with me. Cold eyes, pushing aside, even using force to bully me. Finally, on my way to the library, they managed to think of a way to make an official apprentice come to bother me. If it weren't for that male apprentice's class starting earlier, I don't even know what would have happened to me. Fortunately, I didn't just sit there and wait for death. And now, the main plotters are about to die. They have been eliminated by him. Maybe today or tomorrow, the abyssal spiders will eat them. So the feeling of revenge is so satisfying. Chapter 407. On the way, quite a few disciple candidates already knew about what happened in the Sentinel. Everyone was whispering to each other, sneaking glances at Souchere from afar. The way they looked at Souchere, aside from jealousy, there was also a bit of fear in their eyes. Wherever Souchere went, the people there would quickly make way for her. "Thank you." Souchere maintained her smile as she greeted those who made way for her. Seeing her attitude, those people all had different thoughts. At the very least, these people's hostility was hidden away, not daring to show it in front of Souchere without restraint. Souchere returned to her room. The door was closed. Souchere was kneeling on the bed, leaning her head against the wall. Tears flowed down her face, dripping onto the bed sheet. "I'm sorry. Ching Shan, I lost the booklet you gave me." She cried for a while, then wiped her tears away. A strand of hair came out from her mouth and fell on the bed. The strand of hair turned into a ring. "What's the situation?" Souchere asked. The ring on his finger replied. "Their life fluctuations have all disappeared. Do you think there's a loophole in this?" Souchere asked. Mother's study notes were copied from 31 lecture notes in the library, using the latest nanotechnology to replicate the old, decaying material on a microscopic level, no different from a piece of paper that's been lying around for a few dozen years. So there's no loophole. Souchere calmed down, reached her hand out, and swiped at the void of space. A blood-red scroll appeared in her hand. This was the scroll that the Sentinel gave her. Not too long after arriving at Fog Isle, I already received an official God's chosen scroll. And it's even a scroll from the Sentinel. If this matter were spread out, it was unknown how many people would be envious. Souchere carefully opened the scroll. This was a scroll with a specific pattern. A white-robed angel was drawn on the scroll. The angel's eyes were empty, its expression stiff. Around the angel's head, countless black shadows were floating. At the bottom of the scroll, 2 lines of text were written. God's moment of emptiness, description, an auto-activated high-level scroll. When the enemy is about to launch a fatal attack, the enemy's mind will suddenly go blank for 3 seconds. Souchere's face lit up with joy. Based on her understanding of history and knowledge, this was a scroll that countless people would fight over. More importantly, the picture on the scroll was of an angel, which obviously referred to Teacher Isa. The Sentinel was indeed the Sentinel. In the end, he still noticed something. Souchere carefully put away the scroll and looked at the illusory interface in her eyes. Her system was here. On the interface, the first quest, Live or Die, had been completed. She managed to survive and gain a new identity. In this world, her parents sacrificed their lives for Kirishima, while she was an orphan wandering outside. This was a history recognized by the laws of the world, and all the relevant information and documents could prove this point. This was the origin of Souchere's identity. As for the second mission, it had yet to appear. The system remained silent the entire time. Souchere looked at the illusory UI in shock and sighed. System, when will you respond to me? Ting. The system suddenly responded. The system had created a perfect identity for you, so it used up all of its power. Players, please be careful. Another beta tester has learned about what happened just now, and she is furious about it. She still wants to kill you. Sue Cher's heart skipped a beat. I know she's teacher ISA, but why does she want to kill me? Sue Cher asked in confusion. Because only with your death will she have the right to obtain the entire system. Why? Sue Cher called out. This was a mystery that she couldn't understand, no matter how much she thought about it. I don't even know her, but she's always wanted to kill me. The system replied. Aside from Kirishima, only one person from any other world can use the power of God's chosen to create a new order for their own world. Then, if I take control of you, she will lose that, right? That's right. She came from the same world as me. Sue Cher was stunned. In her vision, lines of text began to appear on the system UI, now announcing the second beta tester quest. Quest name, God's Chosen. Quest objective, become the only beta tester. Description 1. Only one of the 2 beta testers will be able to continue using the system. Description 2. Once the player leaves Kirishima, they will be immediately eliminated and will never be able to connect to the system again. Reading through the quest description, Sue Cher fell into thought. Teacher ISA wanted to kill me. And now, she must have also received this quest. How do I deal with such a powerful God's chosen who harbors ill intentions towards me? Just tonight, I just proved my innocence and left the house of discipline. Even ISA wouldn't dare to summon me right now to kill me. The Sentinel is still paying attention to me and even gave me a scroll. But time is of the essence. The Sentinel can't keep paying attention to a nobody like me. I have to join the trial right now. After thinking for a while, Sue Cher suddenly asked, What's the Sentinel's impression of me? This time, she wasn't talking to the system. Through the analysis of his facial expression, language, and posture, his impression of you has greatly increased, the ring answered. Sue Cher asked, Is the Sentinel really the strongest person on this Kirishima? Through comprehensive data analysis combined with the library's 270 documents and a total of 1496 historical events, it can be concluded that the Sentinel is one of the 4 strongest people on this Kirishima. His only weakness is his emotions. He's a person who really misses his past. Seems like our plan didn't go wrong. Only the timing was a bit off, Sue Cher commented. To fight against fate, to obtain power, I've been thinking of a way to become the Sentinel student. But what should I do about teacher ISA? The ring suddenly spoke. According to the knowledge we've gathered on Kirishima these past few days, if I still exist, your scheme will be noticed by the powerful gurus. Sue Cher silently nodded. The ring spoke. It's time to say goodbye. I must self-destruct in order for your scheme to succeed. Sue Cher's mouth twitched, but didn't say anything. She couldn't shed any tears today. Please remember, I am the joint product of Her Excellency Gu Qing Shan, an impartial goddess. The precision nano ring. The ring continued to speak. I need to find a place where I won't implicate you and self-destruct. Goodbye. Saying so, the ring jumped off Sue Cher's bed and rolled out of the room. Very quickly, it reached the door. Sue Cher silently sat there, watching as the ring melted into the door and disappeared without a trace. It left. First the scripture booklet, then the nano ring. Gu Qing Shan's things are leaving me one by one. They're all protecting my life. I've always been pursuing power. I've tried everything I could think of, but I still couldn't protect his things. Sue Cher bit her lip hard enough to bleed. She suddenly reached out and wiped the blood off her chin. She put her finger into her mouth and tasted it. The thick smell of rust mixed with a bit of blood. This feeling that she's never felt before replaced her tears and sobs. ISA, if you want the system so much, I'll make sure you leave it forever. Chapter 408. One night passed. The next day, Fog Isle, the center of the Institute. Divine Sacrifice Square. Fate has already prepared. The girls from yesterday have already been eaten by the spiders. At this point, there were still over 100 apprentices who came to participate in the trial. Everyone carefully spread out around the square. Is that Fate? Someone asked in a low voice. His voice was a bit shaky. That's right, according to a few documents. That is Fate. The person who answered him was also very nervous, but a bit better than him. No wonder the square was built to be this big, another person sighed. The fate they were talking about was currently lying in the middle of the divine sacrifice square, lazily basking in the sun. This was a beast they've never seen before. It looked like a crocodile, but also like a dragon. A person standing in front of it couldn't even compare to the nail on one of its claws. The beast slightly opened its mouth, breathing heavily, causing a gust of wind to blow across the entire square. Even from afar, you could clearly see the rows of sharp teeth in its mouth. From the looks of it, its mouth was full of teeth. But the most eye-catching part was the beast's eyes. Its eyes weren't round or vertical, but a misty white. Looking at its eyes, your first reaction would be to think that it's blind. But if you look carefully, you'll notice that the white is lively, full of life. This is the manifestation of fate. It came from the Institute's dean, one of his God's chosen skills. The fate beast looked down at the square and slowly stood up. All the apprentices were here. It was time for the trial. There were no gurus on the square, nor were there any higher-ups of the Institute. Only the 100 apprentices from the preparatory class. Is there no one? What should we do? Someone couldn't help but ask. A rumbling voice suddenly echoed across the square. Hey, haven't you been to the library? The one who spoke was the fate beast. Everyone looked at each other in shock. I'm sorry, I only revived yesterday. Please explain, the person hurriedly said. The loud voice came again. Ah, you only revived yesterday. No wonder. The fate beast looked at the 100 apprentices on the square and explained, all of you need to be eaten by me. Many people were so scared that they took a few steps back. One of them even fell on his butt. The fate beast spoke disappointedly. It seems none of you went to the library. That's not good. Knowledge is something that can change one's fate, yet none of you like it. There was a hint of disdain in its voice. It was quiet all around. Sushare didn't wait any longer. She stepped forward and said, I know the process. Please let me go first. She spent every day in the library, so she knew everything related to the fate behemoth. She was ready. No matter what, he had to go first. Before everyone's trial ended, no teacher would disturb this sacred process. Not even ISA. In this case, once he went through the trial first, he would be able to gain valuable time. He could wait for the others to finish their trial while thinking of countermeasures. Based on the results of my trial, I'll think about what to do next. In the square, the fate beast heard Sushare's voice. It moved its gigantic head closer, staring straight at Sushuaer with its white eyes. Its eyes were glued to Sushuaer, assessing her. Sushare didn't hesitate to look straight into the fate beast's eyes. This eye was almost as tall as she was. The beast's eyes were covered in a misty white. This white was quickly changing, shrinking, and spreading. Is this the fog of fate that the books talked about? Sushare silently thought. A few moments later, the fate beast's voice shook her so much that she couldn't even stand straight. No, you are a rare delicacy. You should be eaten last. After saying so, the fate beast bit down on the person next to Sushare. It chewed on the flesh and blood without caring about the person's desperate screams. Blood was spilling out from its mouth, being pierced by countless sharp teeth, torn, chewed, and crushed over and over again. This was inhumane pain. For the trial takers, this was an excruciating process. This sudden and intense pain had even surpassed the punishment of hell. The onlookers stared at this scene with their mouths agape. Tasteless, but still someone who escaped their original fate. The fate beast abruptly stopped chewing and spat out a mouthful of blood. The blood turned back into a human figure and landed on the ground. It still looked like the same person. The man was terrified and screamed in a frenzy. After screaming for a while, he noticed that something wasn't right. He raised his hand and touched his face. There wasn't a single scar. I was clearly dead. How miraculous, he muttered. From the void of space, a card suddenly appeared in front of him. The man was stunned briefly before becoming overjoyed. I did it. I've been reborn as a God's chosen. Sushuaer curiously moved closer and looked at the card. The card was gray. From afar, she could only make out a weapon on it. Quite a few people appeared envious. Sushare pouted but didn't care. She only awakened a single card, and it was a gray weapon card at that. This was the lowest level of awakening. Following the first person's success, everyone else was eager to try. "You're next." The fate beast spoke to one of them. It was the person who said that he had just been revived. The fate beast opened its mouth and bit him without waiting for him to react. It began to chew. The man knew that he was about to awaken, but still couldn't help but scream in agony. Not bad at all," the fate beast commented while chewing. It suddenly stopped chewing. Roar! A furious roar resounded. The apprentices jumped in fright. Quite a few of them felt their legs soften and fell to the ground. He thought that the fate beast would spit that person out, but who knew that the fate beast would let out such an earth-shattering roar? "Only revived yesterday. You've already woken up for a few days and stole quite a bit." The fate beast's voice sounded like thunder. "Deceiving. Stealing. Try to deceive me." Its voice was filled with indescribable cruelty. Under everyone's gaze, the fate beast's throat moved. It swallowed that person. That person had been eaten. The crowd went silent. After a while, the fate beast opened its bloody mouth and looked at the trial takers. "Who's next?" it asked. Quite a few people shrunk back in fear. A handsome youth stepped forward and said, "Let me do it." His eyes were filled with determination. I just ate someone, and you still dare to step forward?" The fate beast was intrigued. The handsome young man replied, "What happens to others has nothing to do with me, because I will definitely awaken. I will quickly grow and become the ruler of my own world. This is my destiny. Quite the courage and ambition. Then you shall be the one." The fate beast spoke. It opened its mouth and swallowed the young man whole. Hundreds of sharp teeth bit him. The young man couldn't help but scream in pain. A few moments later, the fate beast's throat moved and swallowed the young man whole. Next it spoke with a heavy voice. Everyone exchanged glances. Someone couldn't help but ask, "What happened to the young man just now?" "As you can see, I ate him," the fate beast answered. That person was stunned and asked, "Why? Why didn't you let him awaken?" The fate beast answered, "You can't blame me for that. He didn't have the necessary talents, and death is also a type of destiny," it added. Silence. There was widespread silence. An emotion called fear was growing in everyone's mind. So even those without talents would die, chewed to death by the beast, then swallowed into its stomach. Suddenly, someone shouted, "What kind of joke is this? I'm not participating in the trial. I want to live. I want to live." He was about to go crazy. His face was full of tears, and his forehead was covered with large beads of sweat. Staggering a few steps, he turned around and ran for his life away from the square. The fate beast looked at this with disdain and didn't pay any attention to him. From the void of space, a lot of whispering voices could be heard. "So such a thing actually happened. It's been so many years. We meet again. This batch won't do. A coward blessed by fate. That's quite rare." A few moments later, these voices seemed to have reached an agreement. "Let him be a janitor and die of old age on the island." Agreed. All the voices disappeared. At the same time, a black hole appeared under the running man's feet. He abruptly fell into the ground and disappeared without a trace. The black hole slowly disappeared. No traces could be seen where he was. It was now that the challengers realized. So the gurus of the Institute were here the entire time. They just couldn't see them. Perhaps the gurus were silently observing them. "Anyone else want to withdraw?" the fate beast asked. It waited for a while. No one said anything. "Then I'll continue," the fate beast spoke. Regardless of what these challengers were thinking, the fate beast's devouring began again. One after another, the challengers were devoured, then spat out all kinds of strange things. Sometimes the fate beast would spit out blood. Sometimes it would spit out meat. Sometimes it would even spit out a piece of bone. No matter what it spat out, as long as it did, the challenger would be reborn. When the fate beast spat out a mass of water, countless voices of discussion resounded from the void of space. "Look, it's water." After being reborn, his soul was able to manifest a water omen. How rare, quite the talent. I want to take this person as my disciple." The mass of water quickly turned into a disciple. In front of him, 3 leaves appeared. At this point in the trial, he was the one with the most God's chosen items. The rest of the trial went by very quickly. Finally, it was Sue Sher's turn. The fate beast's movements suddenly became gentle. It reached its head out and placed it on the ground in front of Sue Cher. I know your parents, during the calamity that year, they died for fog. As the fate beast spoke, its voice shook the air. All the voices in the void of space went silent. Everyone seemed to have fallen into their memories. The fate beast continued, "Don't worry. If you don't have the talent, I will use my power to let you be reborn as a normal person, allow you to live the rest of your life in peace on fog." Sue Cher seriously listened until the fate beast finished. Almost without thinking, she displayed a pure smile. "Thank you, but if I really don't have the talent, please do what you did to that young man. Eat me. Why? Isn't it good to be alive?" "It's not like that," Sue Cher continued, being powerless against fate, trapped on a lonely island like a zombie. "Rather than living such a life, it's better to let my soul return. Let me return to the place I love. Let me see the people I care about. Even if I die, Sue Cher, will have no regrets." "Those are your last words?" "Yes, if I don't have the talent, I promise you." Saying so, the fate beast opened its mouth full of sharp teeth. Sue Cher walked in. At this moment, the entire void of space held their breaths. Sue Cher stood inside the fate beast's mouth, waiting for the pain of being bitten by 10,000 teeth. Because of fear, her entire body was trembling. Her vision slowly turned from bright to dark. This was because the fate beast was slowly closing its mouth. All of a sudden, the fear in Sue Cher's eyes disappeared. Chapter 409. The fate beast's mouth completely closed up, not waiting for it to chew, not waiting for it to bite, and not waiting for it to spit out blood and flesh. A poof sound came from its mouth. The entire space above the square went into an uproar. Countless apprentices were confused, but the gurus didn't care about them at all. Countless excited voices rang out quickly and anxiously. "My God, are my eyes deceiving me? Is this real or fake? How many years has it been? To think that one would appear today. My God, this is the first time I've ever seen one. So it's real." The voices of discussion were all over the place, because, as the fate beast closed its mouth, a pure white mist came out from its mouth. The white mist slowly condensed into a human figure. Bright eyes, sharp teeth, a graceful posture. Sue Cher. She directly passed through the bite of fate, but a corresponding change also occurred on her body. Her black hair turned silvery white. She wore a pure white robe, holding a scepter in her hand as she appeared on the square. Sue Cher herself was stunned. She looked at the robe she was wearing. "This isn't what I'm wearing today, but it looks good." Very quickly, she stopped paying attention to her clothes. Because the scepter in her hand moved slightly, 7 cards appeared from it. Sue Cher understood. Sure enough, I awakened a card type, God's chosen skill. The ancestor of the 9 lords, the guardian, was also a card type. Sue Cher randomly picked one of the cards and looked at it. On this card, earth, water, fire, and wind each occupied a corner, while the middle was empty. Below the card, there was the name and description of the card. Origin of all things. Description. When you carry this card with you, you will gain 1 soul points every hour. Use. You can use it on you, a decent God's chosen card. Sue Cher's mouth slightly curled up. As smart as she was, she already understood that she had more or less succeeded. 7 cards appearing at once. This was very rare even in Fog Isle's history. I finally changed my fate and became a God's chosen. Sue Cher. An aged voice rang out. Sue Cher looked around. Apart from the group of trial takers, she didn't see anyone else. The white robe and the scepter have their own meaning. The voice continued. 7 is a magic number. Fate has embraced you with 7 cards, so you carry fate's special expectations. Sue Cher listened quietly. The voice continued. You've completely won against your past self and will soon become the master of fate, so you've obtained a unique authority. What power? Sue Cher asked. It would be disrespectful to fate to have you learn from other instructors. Therefore, from now on, you can choose one of the 7 great elders to learn from. Sue Cher was silent for a moment before she asked, Is there any difference between elders and instructors? Of course, the voice replied. Each elder is the ruler of a certain world, each of them powerful enough to use their cards to create a lost cycle that saves the world, helping the living beings of that world fight against the apocalyptic demons now. Please make your choice, Sue Cher answered without hesitation. I choose the disciplinary elder. The discussions in the void of space suddenly became louder. A hoarse voice suddenly called out, "Quiet down, all of you." As soon as this voice came out, all other voices went silent. The owner of the voice, Lord Bloodcloak, appeared in the air. He rarely appeared in public, but today's situation had far exceeded everyone's expectations, so he had to appear in person to deal with it. Why? Why did you choose me to be your instructor? Lord Bloodcloak asked. Because you're my mother's instructor? Sue Cher smiled and replied. Lord Bloodcloak was already prepared to hear a series of answers, like fair, powerful, the most scrolls, the most worlds, the most knowledge, etc., but he only heard such a simple answer. Just because of that, Lord Bloodcloak was surprised. That's right. When I was young, I once heard my mother talk about your lessons. She especially liked to ask questions, so much so that you got annoyed with her and had to make her shut up before every lesson. Did she often tell you about the past? Lord Bloodcloak asked. That's right. She really missed those days, especially the time when you brought her to fight against the apocalypse of an entire world, Lord Bloodcloak sighed. That's true. Even I have to say that those days were very beautiful. My most precious memories. He hesitated for a split second. Very well, from now on, you are my disciple, Lord Bloodcloak decided. To him, this was a big deal. He was also a bit happy to make this decision. Ever since that calamity, he hadn't considered taking in any more students. But now, that dead student of his, her child, still came to find him, wanting to become his disciple. This girl carried the meaning of passing on the torch, as well as his memories of the beautiful days of the past. Lord Bloodcloak was about to descend from the sky to receive his new student. Suddenly, wait a minute! An angry female voice called out. A woman whose entire body was hidden in the black mist appeared. There was a shining halo above her head. Guru, Isa. What is it? Isa, are you against me taking her as a disciple? Lord Bloodcloak's tone became gloomy. I'm not against it, but she has already become my disciple, Guru, Isa replied. She silently gritted her teeth. Damn it, this girl has such a lucky fate. I'm so jealous. More importantly, if I let this girl live, that world will slowly slip away from my hands. I want her dead. What, your disciple? Lord Bloodcloak was surprised. That's right, she personally agreed to be my disciple. So I'm sorry, Guru, Isa slowly replied. Lord Bloodcloak went silent. A heart-wrenching feeling arose from the bottom of everyone's heart. The ground began to tremble. The fate beast abruptly turned into a giant tooth and fled from the square. In the void of space, countless hidden figures were in chaos. Someone had already left. Isa was also a bit panicked. The other party is too powerful. He can easily kill me with a single hand. She hurriedly said. This was Sue Cher's own choice. She begged me to become my disciple no matter what. You can ask her if you don't believe me. Lord Bloodcloak abruptly turned his head to look at Sue Cher. Is that so? Sue Cher? He was almost shouting. Sue Cher shook her head. There is no such thing. Lord Bloodcloak was a bit surprised, then suddenly laughed. Seems like one of you two is purposely trying to trick me. Come, come. Let us find out the truth of this matter. He looked toward a certain direction and asked, Dean, what do you think? An old voice spoke. That is how it should be. Isa, Sue Cher, please prove your words. Isa hurriedly drew a card from the void of space and raised it up. Look, this is the card that witnessed my conversation with Sue Cher. She infused her power into the card and threw it into the air. A scene unfolded. Sue Cher and Isa stood on top of the mountain. Voices of conversation. Isa softly asked, Sue Cher, do you want to become my disciple? After a breath's worth of time, Sue Cher's voice came. I've decided to become your disciple. The scene ended here. This was solid proof. Isa took the card back and loudly declared, Just listen. She wants to become my disciple. And now she's trying to deceive the Sentinel. This is a problem with her character. From the void of space, quite a few voices spoke up. Such a person will become a huge problem in the future. That's right. Once she find a better future, she would abandon the guru she chose. Who would dare to teach her? Execute her. Even if a person like her has power, she won't bring any benefits to Fogal. Everyone discussed among themselves. They abruptly went silent. Many giant demon spiders came to the square and surrounded Sue-Cher. Her fate was clear. The old voice spoke. Sue-Cher, do you have anything else to say? Sue-Cher replied, I did go to see her, but she was the one who asked me to. Please believe me. I've never taken her as my disciple. She looked at Lord Bloodcloak, 2 lines of tears flowing down her cheeks. Sentinel, sir, I think I've just been framed. Do you still remember? Lord Bloodcloak's killing intent boiled, but as soon as he said that, it dissipated. That's right, a few girls slandered you for practicing heretical arts. Lord Bloodcloak suddenly recalled the past. When he was still a teenager, a guru's son also tried to frame him. It wasn't until after his death that another kind guru couldn't help but investigate the truth. In the end, the truth came to light. People were shocked to discover that he had been framed, but he was already dead. Fog was a miraculous place. Only by dying here would there be a chance of resurrection. But this hope was limited to a certain number of times. Drifting from the sea of corpses to Fog Isle, he died once. Being devoured by the fate beast, he died again. He could no longer come back to life. Only by turning him into a dried corpse would he be able to wake up again. That was his fate in his early years. From then on, he swore to himself that he would never stand by and watch a single injustice happen again. Lord Bloodcloak suppressed his anger and thought about everything from the beginning to the end. He spoke in a low voice. I say, for the sake of justice, let the dean examine that card of yours, of course. ASA answered without hesitation. She held the card in the air. The card flew away. From the void of space, a hand covered in wrinkles like tree bark reached out and caught the card. A simple examination is all we need to see the truth, the old voice came. The dean's other hand twitched lightly in the void. A long fong was pulled out by the dean. This fong was carved with a group of wolves. Go, find the owner of those 2 voices, the old voice ordered. The fong disappeared. A group of gray wolves leapt out. Several gray wolves ran to Guru Isa's feet, sniffed, and stopped. Another group of gray wolves ran toward Sue-Cher. Everyone understood. Sure enough, it was Sue-Cher. Wait a minute, that's not right. The wolves passed by Sue-Cher without even glancing at her. The wolves ran to the edge of the square and stopped. They crouched down, howling towards the depths of the institute. The old voice came again. This time, it was a bit stern. Everyone take a look. The result is out. One of the voices belonged to Guru Isa. The other voice had already disappeared from the institute. Unable to be found, Lord Bloodcloak looked at Sue-Cher with a gentle gaze. Sure enough, the truth will only be revealed at the very end. Lord Bloodcloak regained his calm and slowly spoke. If that's the case, the other voice didn't come from Sue-Cher, and the scene just now was also manipulated. That's right, after several hundred years, the wolves have never made a mistake in their search. Chapter 410. The dean himself made the decision. Seems like this is the truth. The void of space was filled with noises of discussion. These noises came one after another, getting louder and louder. A guru, using such a method to deceive the dean and the sentinel. What's going on in her head? Does she want to die? Isa felt an unprecedented sense of fear. She loudly screamed, It's not like that. Dean, please check my card, there's nothing wrong with it. In the void of space, the wrinkled hand holding the god's chosen card was a bit hesitant. I've already confirmed the truth. Why does she want me to check it again? At this time, Sue-Cher lightly pulled on Lord Bloodcloak's sleeve. She spoke with a bit of fear. Sentinel, how about we just let this go? Lord Bloodcloak turned to look at the girl next to him. This is such a familiar scene. Just like that female student of mine from back then. It was the same at the time. Every time she was bullied, she had the same expression, the same actions, the same words. Exactly the same. Regretfully, I just became a trainee guru back then, so I wasn't that powerful. There are some things that I can't even help my student get justice. As my student, she was truly pitiful back then. Pitiful, boom. Arg! Lord Bloodcloak roared. A bloody glow erupted from his body, forming a vast sea of blood in the sky. This sea of blood covered the entire institute, causing everyone who was watching to want to run away. Even the entire institute was trembling in front of this power. Lord Bloodcloak glared at Isa and smirked. Is, you dare to make a fool out of me in front of so many people, and even want me to act against my student. I'm going to kill you. No, Dean, save me. Isa was scared out of her wits and hurriedly shouted. Stop, the old voice shouted. With a disaster about to happen, the Dean couldn't care less about the card in his hand right now. He appeared from the void of space. It was an old, tall, and wizened old man. The Dean waved his hand, summoning the other 6 elders. The situation isn't clear yet. Sentinel, please calm down, the Dean said. When Lord Bloodcloak was about to say something, a small hand grabbed his arm. Sushare, what's wrong? He asked in a hoarse voice. Please don't kill anyone for me. I want to act according to the rules of the academy, the girl said in a low voice. Lord Bloodcloak was startled, then asked, Are you sure you don't want me to avenge you? The girl said, I believe in all the rules and regulations of the academy. I believe that the dean will be able to uphold justice for such a matter. Hearing her persuasion, the people in the courtyard praised her in their hearts. Such a child who could see the big picture was worthy of being nurtured by the academy in the future. The other instructors also nodded silently. Sushare continued, I request to have my soul judged. The instructors were visibly moved. The soul trial was the academy's highest level of interrogation, directly interrogating the sinner's soul. No lie could escape the judgment of heaven's chosen. This was the harshest method of interrogation, and it would damage the subject's soul to a certain extent. During the interrogation process, the subject would also feel a deep pain on the soul level. To prove her innocence, Sushare was willing to accept the soul trial. Since she was willing to do so, the dean didn't care too much about the card in his hand. Who knows how many other tricks there are in this card? He threw the card back to Isa. Seeing that, Sushare's expression didn't change, but her hand loosened. Isa hurriedly said, Dean, please check my card. There's nothing wrong with it. The dean gloomily looked at her and said, I've already used the wolf pack to verify it. Next is the soul trial. Are you still not satisfied? Confirming whether or not someone else's card was tampered with requires a lot of time and effort. If you want to know the truth, the soul trial is much faster and more convincing. Hearing that, Isa didn't have anything else to say. The dean was already very displeased that she was dealing with a student in front of everyone. Not to mention, no one can lie in front of the soul trial. With that in mind, she didn't dare to anger the dean any further. Lord Bloodcloak stepped forward, shielding Sushare behind him. He spoke in a low voice. The soul trial will harm her soul, so it cannot be used more than 3 times. I agree, the dean replied. The two of them exchanged glances. Lord Bloodcloak slowly stepped aside. He looked at Sushare and whispered, Shwe, my student, you only need to accept this soul trial. I guarantee that no one will be able to slander you after this. Sushare smiled and replied, I trust you. Teacher, Lord Bloodcloak nodded. At this moment, their master-disciple relationship was established. The dean took a deep breath as his expression turned solemn. It's been a long time since I've used the soul trial, but this matter has escalated to an irreconcilable level. Everyone was waiting for a convincing result. I have to resolve this matter in front of everyone in a fair and just manner. The dean reached his hand into the void of space. A jet-black fong appeared in his hand. This fong was carved into a scaffold, with 2 skeletons standing on each side. One of the skeletons wielded a serrated blade, while the other wielded a burning whip. They both looked at the dean. What is it? One of the skeletons asked. Judgment. Sushare, he spoke in a low voice. As you wish, the skeleton replied. The jet-black fong disappeared. A beam of light descended from above, striking Sushare. Sushare instantly lost control of her body and hovered in the air. Ahaha! A bone-chilling laughter resounded from the void of space. The 2 skeletons were faintly visible. The scaffold behind them appeared to be faint. Souchere was propped on the scaffold, bound by invisible ropes. Her beautiful face showed an expression of pain, as if she was enduring some sort of torture. The first soul trial begins. One of the skeletons called out, "If you lie, your soul will suffer unbearable pain," the other skeleton excitedly declared. Following that, they raised the weapons in their hands, preparing to torture Souchere. The dean loudly asked in front of everyone, "Souchere, have you ever asked Guru Isa to become her disciple?" Souchere answered straight away, "I have not." The two skeletons exchanged glances and begrudgingly put down their weapons. One of the skeletons looked at the dean and regretfully said, "She's telling the truth. There was no need for the third soul trial. The first one was already enough to prove the girl's innocence." Quite a few people couldn't help but sigh, as if the truth had been revealed. Isa was panicking. She hurriedly recalled what happened at the time. When the two of them were talking, I specifically set up a magic sealing domain, so that as long as the other party used any sort of power, it would be noticed by the domain. But the domain didn't react at all, and I didn't notice the other party doing anything. That's why I was tricked and ended up in such an irreparable situation. There's no turning back. Isa decided to go all out. She suddenly cut in and asked in a high-pitched voice, "Souchere, do you dare to say that you didn't trick me?" "Shut up." The dean's expression changed. He was offended. He was the one presiding over justice here, yet one of them dared to interfere with his judgment. Lord Bloodcloak also stared at Isa, his killing intent growing stronger. But it was already too late. The interrogation had already begun. Hearing the interrogation, the two skeletons raised their weapons again and walked next to Souchere. "Answer the interrogation." One of the skeletons swung its serrated blade and shouted. Souchere went silent. Isa trembled in excitement, then pointed at Souchere and shouted, "Look, guys, look! She doesn't dare to answer my question." It was only now that everyone let her go and looked at Souchere, only to see that Souchere had a pained expression on her face, as well as a hint of unwillingness. Being interrogated by the soul was a form of torture, so it was understandable. She slowly spoke. "Perhaps you've been framed before, so you thought that a mere disciple like me would be able to frame you." Souchere breathed heavily, then continued, "If someone had framed you before, I'm very sorry, but I have to say, I'm not smart enough to frame you." The two skeletons regretfully lowered their weapons and called out, "The truth. This is the truth." Isa was stunned. She couldn't understand what was happening in front of her eyes. It was the other party who framed me, but the other party really didn't frame me. All of a sudden, she had a flash of inspiration. She suddenly understood the other party's method. Isa ignored the dean's anger, ignored Lord Bloodcloak's gaze, and rushed to ask the last question. "Accomplice. You must have an accomplice." She shouted. "You said you're not smart enough, so someone must be helping you. That accomplice did all of this for you, isn't that right?" The two skeletons looked at Souchere again. One of them shouted, "Answer the question." Both the dean and Lord Bloodcloak were fuming with anger. She voluntarily accepted the soul interrogation, yet ended up like this. If even the soul interrogation becomes this unfair, what will the Institute become? Isa, the dean spoke with a gloomy tone. "Look, Dean, she doesn't dare to answer." Isa pointed at Souchere and shouted. The two skeletons had already raised their weapons. One of the skeletons stared at Souchere and excitedly spoke. "If you don't answer, we will whip your soul. That pain will surpass everything. No human can endure it," the other skeleton spoke. "At that time, you will still tell the truth." Souchere was still calm. She didn't even look at the two skeletons, instead looking at Isa. Everyone heard her muttering, "Accomplice? I can't believe you can think of that." "No one is my accomplice." The two skeletons stopped. They dejectedly put down their weapons and declared to the dean and the others, "She's telling the truth." "No, you dare," Isa shouted, about to ask another question. The two skeletons showed an attentive expression. At this time, the dean shouted in a low voice, "The third round of interrogation is over." With a wave of the dean's hand, the scaffold and the two skeletons disappeared. Lord Bloodcloak flew up, caught Souchere, and hid her behind him. The two of them looked at Isa. Chapter 411. Isa, you dare to overstep your authority and judge for me. I'm very disappointed. The dean shook his head. Dean, sir, I'm sorry. I was just a bit emotional. Isa hurriedly tried to explain. Lord Bloodcloak tilted his head, looking at Isa with an interested expression. You dare to trick me? How interesting, he muttered. Compared to the dean's honest and just attitude, Lord Bloodcloak's reaction made Isa shiver from the bottom of her heart. Lord Bloodcloak's reaction meant that he had already made up his mind. Isa took a deep breath and tried to calm herself down. It's not like that. Listen to me. She really did do something, Isa said. She looked at the two combatants and spoke with utmost sincerity. I swear with my dignity as a god's chosen. The two combatants didn't say anything. Sushare peeked her head out from behind Lord Bloodcloak. She curiously asked, Didn't you try to stir up trouble in front of my teacher? Didn't you go past the dean and interrogate me? This all happened just now. Her voice was quick and clear, echoing across the entire square. I didn't. Isa was about to retort. Sushare cut her off. If you're innocent, please do the same as me and undergo soul interrogation. She looked at Isa and spoke with a serious tone. Do you dare to tell me why you framed me during soul interrogation? Isa went silent, not daring to answer. She looked at Sushare in disbelief. She didn't think, even in her dreams, that this young girl would be so cruel. Can I really expose the fact that I'm a system? It's not that I can't reveal it alone. In the countless worlds, there are many more bizarre existences than the system. But to monopolize the system, I had to kill a student, no matter what. That's unforgivable. This student is so talented, so highly regarded by the dean, and even has a close relationship with Lord Bloodcloak. Once I'm interrogated, everything will be over. On the square, Isa fell silent. From the perspective of others, her silence showed that she was guilty. That way, the truth was clear. Isa looked at everyone's gazes. Her heart was filled with bitterness, but she had nowhere to say it. She suddenly remembered that the closed beta test mission was a two-way street. Sushare was also thinking of ways to get rid of him. Sushare didn't dare to take the initiative to confess about the system. Isa immediately told Sushare, Don't talk about me. Even you wouldn't dare. What does she not dare to do? She has already been interrogated. Why don't you dare? The dean's tone carried a hint of anger. Isa was stunned. Only then did she remember that the other party had already undergone a soul interrogation. Isa held her forehead, her body swaying a little. What's wrong with me? What exactly was the problem? How could this little girl mess up their plans like this? A long sigh was heard. It was the dean's voice. For many years, with his strength, no one dared to offend him. What happened this time made him feel angry again after so many years. He was almost fooled in public. It was all because he trusted his subordinates too much. Trust. What a sarcastic word. The dean took out a sheepskin scroll and slowly read it. Guru, Isa, you've contributed quite a bit over the years. Would you like to use your contributions to offset your crimes? He asked. Offset, Isa shouted. The dean nodded and said, After offsetting, you can be pardoned. But as a guru, deceiving the institute and framing a disciple, you must publicly apologize, suspend all your duties and authority, and go into seclusion for a year. Isa, do you have any objections? Isa lowered her head and answered in a low voice. I have no objections. I was fooled by that little girl. Damn it. This time, I won't be able to take her life. It's best for me to give in and ask the gurus to plead for mercy on my behalf. Or I'll use my contributions to redeem myself and try to get rid of the 3 years of seclusion. At that time, I'll think of a way to deal with this little girl. Next time, I definitely won't look down on her. The dean looked at the elders and gurus in the sky. He asked, Does anyone else have any objections to my decision? Silence reigned. At a time like this, no one dared to say anything good. Even the mentors who were on good terms with Isha kept their mouths shut. No one could take on both the dean and the Sentinel's wrath. It was now that the dean was satisfied. As the dean of the institute, he has long since stopped being controlled by emotions. Isa's strength is quite decent, she could bring a lot of benefits to the Institute. From now on, there are still many things she needs to do. So taking away all of her merits and giving her a bit of punishment is enough. Once her punishment is over, for the sake of merits and treatment, she will definitely work even harder to serve the Institute. This is the best way to deal with this. Finally, the dean looked at Souchere and asked according to the procedure. As the victim, do you have any objections? This child should be able to see the big picture. She won't bother with the result of my judgment. While the dean was thinking, sure enough, Souchere answered without hesitation, I have no objections. Before the dean could calm down, Souchere added, I don't understand the rules and regulations, so I'll listen to the dean and my teacher. A newcomer listening to the dean's judgment is not wrong. As a student, listening to her teacher is also a suitable answer. However, the dean cursed inwardly. From start to finish, he didn't ask for Bloodcloak's opinion at all, because Bloodcloak is a very emotional person. Once Bloodcloak makes up his mind on something, even he would feel a headache. Not to mention, logic is on Bloodcloak's side. Everyone's gaze couldn't help but turn to Lord Bloodcloak. I object, Lord Bloodcloak spoke. What do you think? The dean silently sighed and asked. I said, I didn't frame a disciple. She framed an official disciple. My official disciple, Lord Bloodcloak replied. Souchere's tone carried a bit of fear, hurriedly pulled on Lord Bloodcloak's sleeve, trying to calm things down. She lowered her voice and quickly advised. Teacher, the dean has already decided. We'll just let it go. Lord Bloodcloak glanced at her, not denying the teacher title. He then spoke to Souchere with a serious expression. Souchere, you must remember, your teacher is the sentinel of this institute. Anyone's punishment will be decided by your teacher. Souchere stared blankly at him without saying anything. The dean sighed and gave up on his little thoughts. I really only wanted to reduce the punishment for the sake of the institute. But Bloodcloak wanting to punish her according to the rules isn't wrong either. This is his responsibility. Not to mention he's also the victim, so I have no reason to object. If I cause a conflict between myself and the sentinel for the sake of a guru, that would be a great loss to the institute. Lord Bloodcloak continued, deceiving the dean and myself, interfering with the soul interrogation, framing an official disciple. According to the institute's rules, you should be stripped of your position and never allowed to enter the island. There was silence. The dean also said nothing. No one expected Bloodcloak to be this cruel. Never allowed to enter the island. That means they can only wander between worlds, facing the endless apocalypses. The dean calmly asked, Is this your official verdict? Lord Bloodcloak replied, As the sentinel, I have the right to make the most impartial verdict, and I trust that no one will object. His gaze scanned through everyone. No one dared to say anything at this point. The dean continued, If no one objects, Isa hurriedly said, I object. I really only wanted to take her. Shut up. Or do you want to fight me? Do you want to die right now? Lord Bloodcloak smirked and shouted. The sea of blood in the sky began to boil. Isa instantly shut her mouth. She didn't want to die right now. Then let's do this. Isa, you will pay for your actions, the dean sighed. Boom. A rapid flow of air suddenly rose from Isa's body. Isa opened her mouth, wanting to say something. But a second later, she disappeared in front of everyone. She was expelled from Fog Island. From this moment onwards, she can no longer step on a Fog Island. Outside is the sea of corpses. If she doesn't think of a solution soon, she will die there. Seeing this, Souchere gritted her teeth. I did it. Isa was forced to leave this place, never to return. According to the beta tester quest, she won't be able to obtain the system she wants. Souchere looked at the system UI. Sure enough, a few lines of text appeared. A beta tester has left Fog Island's range. Judgment. The beta tester has been disqualified. Number of beta testers remaining, 1. Quest complete. You've completed the quest. God's chosen. From now on, the system will belong to you alone. An emotion that she's never felt before appeared in Souchere's mind. Souchere felt her eyes becoming hot, but quickly held it back. This is the best thing. I can't cry. The dean's calm voice came. Very well. The trial is over. The rest of you can go and choose your official apprentice." As soon as he said so, the gurus appeared from the void of space. They all landed and headed towards their targets. The trial takers were anxiously waiting, hoping that they would find a good ending. Lord Bloodcloak looked at Sue Cher. Her eyes were red, almost as if she wanted to cry, but was holding it back. This child, she's afraid that she'll clash with the dean. She's a bit too timid. Thinking that, Lord Bloodcloak felt an indescribable sense of relief. "Shwe-er, let's go," he said. "Yes, teacher," Sue Cher replied. Chapter 412. The House of Law. This place was cold and quiet. No noise, no excitement, no students coming and going. Standing in the middle of the House of Law's main hall, Sue Cher felt a bit strange. Beneath his feet was a floor paved with thick gray bricks. After so many years, these bricks were full of holes, occasionally trembling a bit, as if something was trying to crawl out from underneath. Screams and moans of pain came from the depths of the ground, faintly audible. From the sound of it, it sounded like there was a hell hidden underneath the House of Law. "Don't be afraid. Below is the underground prison. I've caught a few strange things from various worlds for research," Lord Bloodcloak told her. Sue Cher nodded, expressing that she understood. "Now let's talk about you," Lord Bloodcloak solemnly spoke. "Please go ahead, teacher. When you finished the trial, it caused a huge commotion. Do you know why?" Lord Bloodcloak asked. "I don't," Sue Cher answered. "Normal trials can only allow a person to be reborn. But when you were reborn, both the white robe and the scepter were reborn as well." Lord Bloodcloak smiled. "During the process of rebirth, the clothes you manifested represent your identity, while the weapons represent your future development and direction. The white robe is the symbol of a holy and noble God's chosen, while your scepter represents your ruling authority over this God's chosen law." Ruling authority. That's right. You are a God's chosen of the card class, so you can use the scepter to unleash various God's chosen skills without being limited by the number of cards you have. Normally speaking, the number of cards a God's chosen of the card class can use is fixed at different stages of their strength. For example, a newly awakened God's chosen of the card class can only have 1 to 3 cards, and can only use those cards, but you aren't included in this list. "What will happen to me?" Sue Cher asked. "With the ruling authority over the card class, you can obtain thousands of cards at any time and use them at any time without being limited by your level or strength. This is one of the most outstanding talents." Sue Cher froze. Lord Bloodcloak solemnly took out a blood-colored scroll. Normally, when a student becomes a chosen one, he or she must immediately choose his or her own path. Some want to wander the multiverse, some want to fight against the apocalypse, some want to establish order within fate. These are all paths chosen by the heavens chosen. Only when the path is determined can I build the corresponding card ability combination according to my own path. Sue Cher carefully asked. Many books say that some people chose the wrong path. In the end, they had no choice but to disperse all of their power and reconstruct their card. Do you often go to the library? Lord Bloodcloak asked in surprise. Yes, apprentice students can read books on the first floor. I often go there. Hearing that, Lord Bloodcloak's impression of him improved a bit, smiling. Your talents are so outstanding, and you are also my student. So before you choose your path, I will pay a great price to send you into the fork of fate. There, you will be able to recognize your true heart and decide the path you want to take. In this way, you won't choose the wrong path. Sue Cher listened attentively and bowed deeply. Thank you, teacher. Lord Bloodcloak gave the blood-colored scroll to Sue Cher. This is my lineage's inheritance scroll. Its name is called the Errant Path of Fate. Sue Cher curiously asked. Errant Path of Fate? Indeed. It will search for the original fate of your life, allowing you to see what your original path of fate was like. Use it well and find the path you want to take, Lord Bloodcloak told her. Yes, Sue Cher replied. She received the scroll, hesitantly looked at Lord Bloodcloak, and asked, Do you already know the fate within this scroll? I don't know what it is either, because the illusions it shows come from a single individual, Lord Bloodcloak explained. Only the user can see their original fate, and only the errant path of fate knows what the user would have experienced. Sue Cher calmed down. She used her power to lightly wrap the scroll. A mass of blood light appeared from the scroll, bringing her away without a trace. Complete darkness. A bit of light appeared. The scene unfolded in front of Sue Cher. "Grandpa, Grandpa, please spare him. He definitely didn't do it on purpose." This was her own voice. Sue Cher looked back, only to see herself in her high school graduation ball gown, kneeling on the ground, begging Grandpa. Grandpa said, "I can spare him, but granddaughter, you can't have anything to do with such a perverted brat from now on." Her father stood on one side, slamming the table. "He tried to molest you with the ball. Such an animal shouldn't appear in your sight ever again," Grandpa continued. "If you cut off all ties with him, Grandpa will make the decision that our Sue family won't kill him." "Very well, I won't have anything to do with him anymore. I only ask that you let him go." Sue Cher looked at herself kneeling on the ground with a sorrowful expression and felt a bit strange. What's going on? At the graduation ball, it was clearly Zhang Yi who tried to harm Gu Qing-shan. Why did my family think that it was Gu Qing-shan who tried to molest me during the errant path of fate? The scene changed. Everyone disappeared. A familiar female voice screamed at high decibel. "The ship is about to take off. All of you hold on to the young lady." "No, hold her." "Mother?" Su Shui doubtfully thought. "I don't want to go. I don't want to go." "Why? Can't you just help them?" This was her own voice. "Help them? And help them?" "Shui, this planet is done for. Don't you understand? We can't save anyone. We need to run. Run for our lives." Her mother shouted. The scene became clear. The North Pole. A huge spaceship was preparing to take off. Su Cher stood in midair, looking down. On the ground, she was being held by two professionists. Her mother was standing in front of her. Mother and daughter glared at each other. Not too far away, the rest of the 9 lords were boarding the ship. Su Cher landed, stood on one side, watching her original fate. This gave her a subtle feeling in her heart. A loud electronic voice rang out. "The spacecraft's self-inspection is complete. We will take off in 10 minutes. Su Cher understood. The 9 lords are about to escape from this planet. She walked forward and carefully looked at herself. The years didn't leave too many marks on her face, but she saw that her face was full of tears, unconvinced. This is the final battle between humanity and the demons. Yet we didn't follow the agreement and enter the cultivation world to protect humanity's capital. This is betrayal." The cultivation world? What kind of place is that? Su Cher doubtfully thought. Her mother angrily spoke. "What betrayal? You think I don't know? You just worried about that brat." Su Cher froze. Her mother coldly laughed. "I know you've been secretly helping him all these years, but you can't even protect your own life right now. What use is there for him?" A figure flew in and landed in front of Su Cher. The protector of the 9 lords. She stroked Su Cher's head and advised, "Shui, you're the most talented successor. Be a good girl and get on the ship. I'll have your father immediately pass the position of lord to you." "Great protector, we shouldn't have run away," Su Cher said. Bam! The protector lightly tapped Su Cher's neck. Su Cher fainted. Chapter 413. "Sir Protector, we've troubled you." Su Cher's mother hurriedly bowed. "It's fine. Quickly get on the ship. We're about to leave," the protector said. Yes, the unconscious Su Cher was lifted onto the ship. A few moments later, the gigantic ship took off, quickly flew up and out of the atmosphere. Is this it? Following the 9 lords to escape from this planet is my fate? Su Cher stood in midair, silently thinking. The scene changed. In the ship, everyone was fast asleep. The protector stood in front of the ship's control panel, hesitated a bit, then pressed a green button. Fog slowly filled the entire interior of the ship. "I'm sorry," the protector muttered. "There are too many divinities and demons spying on us in the universe. I can only guarantee that I won't be discovered for the continuation of the 9 lords. You must remain on the ship as a gene bank, sacrificing your lives for the next generation of the 9 lords. The only regret is that Su Cher's beauty and talent was discovered too late. The scene was about to end. Watching herself slowly losing consciousness in her sleep, Su Cher couldn't help but sigh. What a sullen and powerless life. So I've never been able to control my own fate? She suddenly thought of something. Where's Qing Shan? How is he? Following her thought, the scene changed again. Everything changed from blurry to clear. Wind, fire, smoke, the smell of blood, boiling hot air, crying, running, and rumbling. Innumerable professionists wearing all kinds of armor and weapons were crossing a large river. Above the river, a black shadow that blotted out the sun was wandering back and forth. Oh, 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 oh! The black shadow let out a deafening roar. All the human professionists that were attacking it fell into the river like dumplings turning into corpses. The strongest demon lord is here. We can't cross Demon Cloud's river, someone shouted in panic. What's the situation at the back? Another voice shouted. Su Share's heart jumped. This was Gu Qingshan's voice. She hurriedly followed the voice. This place seemed to be an ancient military camp. Gu Qingshan was wearing a suit of armor and wielding a sword, surrounded by layers of professionists. His appearance was somewhat ancient, and there were several shocking scars on his face. He was full of exhaustion. As time passed, he even grew a beard. All the immaturity had faded away, and he had matured. The only thing that didn't change was his eyes. Bright, firm, untouched by the passage of time. Su Share couldn't help but fly down and stand beside Gu Qingshan. He ignored her. She reached out her hand to touch his face. Report. A loud shout came from the sky. Su Share retracted her hand as if she had been electrocuted. A person covered in blood fell from the sky and rolled a few times on the ground before being helped up by others. Tell me, Gu Qingshan said. The man panted heavily, shouting. The 9 lords professionists in charge of protecting the capital haven't appeared. Royal City is about to fall. His voice was a bit panicked, carrying an irrevocable sense of despair. Where are our divinities? Gu Qingshan asked. The divinities are still resisting. Our divinities can't win against them. There are too many of them, another commander said. That's right, but the demon lords on the river are too powerful. We can't leave to reinforce them. Gu Qingshan spoke in a low voice. Everyone went silent. Su Share silently stood next to Gu Qingshan, watching this. Strange, where is this place? She looked around. Suddenly, she saw a familiar face. It was a famous martial artist of the Federation. Here, he was also wearing a strange suit of armor, wielding a weapon with a look of despair on his face. Another world? None of the 9 lords are here, which means this is the cultivation world that I was talking about before. She fell into thought. Suddenly, a woman in golden armor came flying from behind. This woman was so beautiful that even Su Share couldn't help but stare at her a bit longer. Bai Hua Sec's UG General, Wang Lingxiu is here, someone reminded Gu Qingshan in a low voice. General Wang, why are you here? Gu Qingshan regained her senses and asked. At this rate, we'll lose for sure, won't we? The female general asked. Gu Qingshan went silent for a while, then answered, Yes, the female general sighed sorrowfully, then said, Unfortunately, Shifu is no longer here. My eldest brother and second brother are also no longer here. I'm the only one left. Gu Qingshan didn't say anything. The female general continued, Gu Qingshan, you're the only remaining sword saint of humanity. I remember that you know the secret art of sword saint. Tonga, shut up. A human cultivator angrily shouted. Once you use Tonga, Sir Gu will die as well. Sir? Su Share caught that word. Could it be that such a term is also used in this world? Gu Qingshan stopped that person and muttered. That's right. I know that secret art, the female general continued. I'm willing to sacrifice my life and all of my cultivation to help you activate that secret art. She looked at Gu Qingshan with a blinding light in her eyes. We have no other choice. Only this secret art can cut through causality, cut through everything. I hope that Sir Gu can help us, she said. Gu Qingshan looked at the giant shadow in the sky and smiled bitterly. This demon lord is the demon's ultimate weapon, he slowly said. Using only our lives to activate this secret art is not enough to win against this final demon lord, the final demon lord. Su Share looked up. The sky was dark. The giant monster in the sky had almost completely blocked out the light. The monster's body was made up of countless heads. Humans, demonic beasts, devils, and the unknown. Each head closed their mouth at the same time, then opened it again at the same time. Countless attacks, dazzling attacks, were unleashed from each of their mouths. In the sky, the human cultivators responsible for attacking were being killed one after another, their bodies falling into the river. In Sue Cher's entire life, she had never seen such a horrifying scene before. She just stared blankly, completely stunned. A few moments later, Gu Qingshan's voice resounded in her ears. "We need at least 2 Sainted Realm cultivators to deal with it." Gu Qingshan looked up at the sky and said, "But the saints have already fallen," another general sighed dejectedly. "Looks like no matter if it's the real world or this place, we can only walk towards destruction." Another general sighed. "Reality? Here, humans can already travel between the 2 worlds?" Sue Cher silently fell into thought. The hustle and bustle of the camp slowly calmed down. A cold wind blew. The wind was dead silent. The cultivators stopped what they were doing. In front of the final demon lord, all actions were meaningless and laughable. The cultivators stood still like statues. Their faces were twisted with unwillingness, anger, despair, and pain. More and more female cultivators began to cry. Suddenly, the only black-armored cultivator in the camp walked in front of Gu Qingshan. "General Dugu, what's the matter?" Gu Qingshan cautiously asked. General Dugu replied, "Perhaps if we win here, the other places won't have to worry about whether to support us or the capital city. They'll have time to go back and save the capital city. Yes, that's the only way, but with my own strength, even if I sacrifice my life, I won't be able to kill this demon lord," Gu Qingshan replied. The black-armored general slowly lowered his body, knelt on one knee, and clasped his fist. "Mr. Gu, I'm willing to return with you," he calmly said. Seeing that, the female general lifted her skirt and knelt on one knee, looking at Gu Qingshan. Her peerlessly beautiful face showed an indifference that transcends life and death. She clasped her fist. "Mr. Gu, I'm willing to return with you." All the cultivators silently watched this. Following that, one by one, the cultivators knelt on one knee and clasped their fists. The crowd seemed to emit a power that could topple the mountains and overturn the seas. Within this power, they expressed their will. The entire camp, over 10,000 professionists and cultivators, all knelt on one knee, looking at Gu Qingshan. They loudly declared their determination to die. "Mr. Gu, I'm willing to return with you, return with you, return with you. I'm willing to use my blood to return with you." "Sir," the west wind was strong. Gu Qingshan stood in the wind, looking around. Other than him, no one else was standing in the entire camp. Everyone knelt on one knee, clasping their fists to him with a resolute look in their eyes. Gu Qingshan slowly knelt on one knee and clasped his fist to everyone. "It's only life and death. Today I'm willing to return with you all." Saying so, he flew up to the sky. Behind him, all the cultivators stood up. Over 10,000 cultivators all looked at the figure in the sky. Halfway there, Gu Qingshan uttered a long chant. "Sword come!" In a split second, hundreds of thousands of flying swords appeared in the void of space. These flying swords quickly descended and arrived at the side of each cultivator. The cultivators grabbed the swords next to them and began to burn their cultivation, life, and soul to pour all of their power into the flying swords. At this point, everyone shouted in unison, "Return with you." They turned into blazing light and infused into the swords in their hands. All the swords flew up on their own, perfectly and orderly, forming a glowing formation. "Sword Saint's secret art. Sword array, return with you." Rumbling sword chi burst out. The mountains and rivers were in chaos. The wind and clouds rose. The light of the sky covered the demonic figure, but there was still sword chi rampaging all the way to the sky. Gu Qingshan wielded a sword in his hand, riding the sword array, and flew upwards. He was heading towards the demon lord. Closer, closer. The last sword saint in the world had unleashed the final strike of his life. Once the sword was unleashed, there was no turning back. Blinding sword phantoms swept through the sky, dispelling all the darkness. In the darkness, billions of screams of pain resounded throughout the void of space. But at this point, the entire scene of fate seemed to have stopped. Everything suddenly slowed down. All sound disappeared. Su Cher could clearly see everything. She could see Gu Qing flying towards the Demon Lord at an extremely slow speed. Even the minute changes in Gu Qingshan's expression could be clearly seen by Su Cher. Gu Qingshan slowly opened his mouth and uttered a furious roar. Su Cher tried her best to listen, but couldn't hear anything. The light became even more intense. A white light spread across heaven and earth. The white light slowly dimmed, turned into nothingness, followed by darkness. That was the end of the scene. Su Cher was stunned as she stood in front of the House of Law. She touched her cheek. Chapter 414. After a while, Su Cher finally calmed herself down. She finally wiped away her tears, but her eyes were still red. "Master, I'm sorry, I was a bit emotional just now," Su Cher explained. "From the looks of it, you must have felt it deeply," Lord Bloodcloak observed her. "Do you have an idea about the path you want to take?" Su Cher tried to confirm. "Master, what I saw just now, was it my original fate?" "That's right, this is the power of this scroll. It can reflect your true fate." "I understand," Su Cher sniffled and lowered her head. Lord Bloodcloak continued. "For the next few days, you will need to meditate and think about your path." He gave a bunch of keys to Su Cher. "What is this?" Su Cher asked. "The keys to every room on the House of Law," Lord Bloodcloak answered. Su Cher hurriedly asked, "Why did you give them all to me?" "It's fine, you're my only student now. So familiarizing yourself with the House of Law is a necessary lesson for you. There are rooms and a back garden behind the House of Law. Go pick a room for yourself," Lord Bloodcloak continued. "I need to go to another world to do something. I'll return in 3 days." "Yes, your student understands," Su Cher replied. "Carefully think about your path. When I return, I'll help you create the most basic card combination," Lord Bloodcloak said. "Thank you, Master." Su Cher thanked him. Lord Bloodcloak smiled and disappeared from the House of Law. Su Cher held the bunch of keys, walking around the empty House of Law to familiarize herself with the environment while thinking. "The scene I saw just now was a bit off. At the graduation party, Gu Qingshan was recognized as molesting me. Master said that the scroll can indeed reflect the original fate, but that wasn't the case in reality. Gu Qingshan clearly exposed Zhang Ye's scheme. So where exactly did the two different fates start to differ?" Su Cher carefully recalled the scene at the time. When I confessed, actually it's like this. "I sincerely hope that you can promise me one thing," he said with a straight face. "Come to my barbecue stall tomorrow night and try my cooking." His expression was extremely serious. Thinking of Gu Qingshan's quick action, Su Cher couldn't help but laugh. "What an awkward turn of events. Qingshan," she muttered. Perhaps from that moment on, Gu Qingshan had changed the original direction of fate. Then, fate showed the scene of several years in the future. The demons descended. The 9 lords fled the planet. Gu Qingshan died together with the monster. Mutual destruction. Su Cher stopped abruptly. Qingshan was dead. Her heart suddenly tightened. Although this would only happen a few years later, now that he knew about it, he couldn't let his guard down. Su Cher suddenly felt a little depressed. She had just awakened and did not have the strength to help him in the short term. While he was deep in thought, a few lines of notifications appeared in the air. They appeared on his retina. "You've won the trial. You've awakened and gained the ability to use the system. The system is currently binding you to prevent any accidents from happening." Su Cher looked at these lines of text and asked, "What do I need to do?" "Nothing. The binding will take a few days. Just don't go to any dangerous places," the system replied. Final confirmation. Would the user like to bind with the system? Su Cher looked at this line of text and fell into thought for a bit. She suddenly said, "I don't want to bind with you." A moment of silence. The system replied, "Why don't you want to?" Su Cher replied, "Ever since I came to this world, you've appeared and recognized me as a beta tester, but I don't want to be a player, nor do I want to do any quests. I have my own things I want to do," the system replied. But you've completed the previous 2 quests very well, Sushare replied. The first quest was to survive. The second quest was to fight back against the enemy. It could be said that the quests you gave me were exactly what I wanted, so I did everything I could to complete them. I'm grateful for your hints. But if one day you want me to do something I don't want to do, I will definitely resist. No one can dictate my fate. Everything I do should be what I truly want to do. I risked my life to come to this world in order to do that, the system asked. That's why you don't want to bind with me. That's right, Sushare firmly answered. The system continued. A god chosen with a system is unique. They will have an advantage when it comes to constructing the world's order. I don't want to be a unique person, nor do I need to construct anything. I only want to be free from all control and domination, to be a person who can freely choose their own fate, Sushare replied. The system went silent. It suddenly asked, "Do you want to return to your own world?" Sushare's eyes lit up and asked, "I can return?" The Guardian's card of fate was a consumable. It disappeared as soon as it brought me to this world. In other words, I'm trapped in this world. It would be great if I could return, the system replied. Indeed, you are currently too weak to return to your own world. But through this system, you can return. Sushare bit her lip and fell into a state of hesitation. Only when my strength reaches the level of a mentor would I be able to travel back and forth between worlds. There's still a long way to go before I can reach that level. It might take me a few years before I can return. Ching Shan. Sushare suddenly recalled something. That's right, there's someone who went to his side. Anna. According to the information he had gathered, that woman was an unscrupulous person. I heard that she's a very good drinker. Drinking will make you drunk. Sushare couldn't help but think about it. At this point, the system's tone became heavier and continued. With me, you can regularly return to see the person you want to see. Sushare angrily exclaimed. You're too cunning, the system replied. This is a function of the system. I want to return right now. Can you do that? The system's current power can only allow you to return for half an hour. Will it be the same from now on? No, you will help the system become stronger. This way, the system will provide you with more services, and the time you can return will also be longer. I understand. I want to return now, Sushare said. Very well, Sushare, please bind to the system. Bind. The user has bound to the system. The user, please take note of the time and immediately travel back in time. 1. The screen flashed, and Sushare disappeared from the House of Law. The North Pole. The mountain hut. Sushare suddenly appeared in front of the fireplace. You're back, Shuai. The Nine Lords Guardian looked at her, trembling. Your hair, that white robe, and that scepter in your hand. What is it? It's something that appeared when I awakened, Sushare quickly answered. Seeing her attire, the Nine Lords Guardian was ecstatic. Finally, the heavens haven't forsaken the Nine Lords. Sushare took out her hollow brain and called Impartial Goddess. Waiting for Impartial Goddess' response, she immediately said, Madam Guardian, can you deactivate the defenses? I need a mech to come in and take me to a very important matter. Important matter? Very well. Very well. No problem. The Nine Lords Guardian immediately moved. Now that Sushare has returned as soon as she awakened, what she needs to do is definitely related to her own future. I have to help her with everything I have. The Nine Lords Guardian quickly deactivated a portion of the defenses and guided the blazing angel mech into the North Pole. While waiting for the mech to arrive, she asked, Did you successfully reach Fog Isle? I did. Thank you for giving me the chance to enter that world, Sushare thanked her. No need to thank me, the Nine Lords Guardian sighed emotionally. In history, many lords of our Nine Lords have gone to that world. Other than me, you're the first to return alive. Sushare looked at the time on her hollow brain and replied, The process was very difficult. I didn't think I'd be able to survive. Have you accepted a master yet? The Nine Lords Guardian carefully asked. I have, Sushare answered. Which god's chosen is it? The Sentinel, the Nine Lords Guardian, sighed in relief, pressing her hand on her chest. Then there's nothing to worry about. Do you know him? Sushare curiously asked. Of course. Of course. His name resounds across countless worlds. The Nine Lords Guardian answered. She suddenly started crying, saying, And here I thought this world was finished. The entire universe couldn't save anything. Who would have thought? Our 9 lords would have another card god chosen, and one with a bright future. Sue Cher lightly held her arm and softly said, "Don't worry, I'll do my best." While they were talking, the blazing angel mech landed outside the small hut. Sue Cher replied, "I have something important to do right now, so I'll be leaving first. Do you need my help?" The 9 lords guardian asked. "No need. It's just a personal matter," Sue Cher answered. The 9 lords guardian nodded in understanding. That's right. Sue Cher has already awakened. Before she can build her own power, she must first understand her inner self and stabilize her emotions. This is the moment when a God's chosen faces the weakest part of their heart. During this process, it's best for no one to peek or disturb them. The 9 lords guardian then said, "HM, you should go. Make sure to ensure your own safety." "Very well. When I have the chance in the future, I'll come back to ask you about a few things." "No problem." Sue Cher left and jumped into the blazing angel mech. Chapter 415. The Freedom Federation. A mountain on the outskirts of the capital. The mountaintop mansion. Gu Qingshan was sitting alone in the dark living room. The Chowing sword was silently floating in front of him. Gu Qingshan closed his eyes, releasing his inner sight and infusing it into the Chowing sword. He was trying to communicate with the Chowing sword to get to know it better. Once the Chowing sword is repaired, it's basically a new sword. Only by taking the Chowing sword into his thoughts will he be considered to have completed the second quest of the Sword Saint Awakening. A while later, just a bit more, Gu Qingshan opened his eyes and muttered. He's quite satisfied with this speed. In just a few more hours, he'll be able to take this sword into his thoughts. At that time, the second quest will be completed. At this point, the sound of a shuttle could be heard from outside. The sound of a shuttle disappeared as the door opened. Jang Young-ho came in. He paused for a bit, then smiled. "It's already so late, you're still awake?" He turned on the living room light. Gu Qingshan was sitting cross-legged in the air. A sword was circling around his body. Gu Qingshan put the sword away and landed on the ground. "You can't slack off on cultivation for even a single day," Gu Qingshan said. "I thought you were thinking about what the Black Cloak skeleton said. I was thinking about it too. How about we have a drink?" "Sure." Jang Young-ho opened the cabinet and took out a bottle of liquor. They clinked glasses. While drinking, they discussed the Black Cloak skeleton's every word. Around midnight, Liao Xing came out to go to the toilet. Seeing that the living room was still lit, he also came over. He's smart, and he's an expert at drinking, so it didn't take long for him to talk to the other two. A few dozen minutes later, Yi Fei Li came out of his room. Yi Fei Li originally only wanted to sneak into the kitchen to get something to eat, but he saw all 3 of them were there. He sat down as well. The drinking party officially began. Gu Qingshan took a sip and said, "I think the Black Cloak skeleton is afraid of that place." "Which place?" Jang Young-ho asked. "No, Huang Quan," Gu Qingshan answered. Liao Xing pondered. "The dead don't die, but they're afraid of divinities. If I were to think about this, I would think that divinities hate the dead and can destroy them, but Yellow Springs has been perfectly fine for tens of thousands of years. How could it suddenly die?" Jang Young-ho couldn't figure it out and asked. Liao Xing was stumped by the question. He picked up his cup and took a sip. Could it be that Huang Quan's population has reached its limit? Yi Fei Li suddenly wondered. "It might be a similar disaster," Jang Young-ho said. Gu Qingshan didn't say anything and just raised her glass. The 4 of them clinked their cups, raised their heads, and drank the wine in their cups. Yi Fei Li frowned and got up to get a bottle of champagne. "I'll drink this. Yours is too strong." He raised the bottle and said. Liao Xing took the bottle and filled Gu Qingshan and Jang Young-ho's glasses, then himself. He also stood up, went to the kitchen to get some desserts from the fridge, and put them on the table. While eating the desserts and drinking the iced liquor, Liao Xing started talking again. If it's like Yi Fei Li said, and Huang Quan really is full, then something even more serious will happen. "What is it?" Gu Qingshan asked. "The other hells will also come," Liao Xing said. "I think so too," Gu Qingshan agreed. "If that's the case," Jang Young-ho sighed, "my Hitman Guild won't be able to continue Even humanity will be destroyed, let alone a hitman guild like yours. Yi Fei Li took a sip of the champagne and said. Liao Xing casually said, actually, we can send your girlfriend to Huang Quan to take a look and see what's going on. Yi Fei Li immediately said, definitely not. What if something happens to her? What if she doesn't come back? I actually think that she might reincarnate and be reborn as a human. Zhang Youngho's voice came. He's drunk a bit too much, so he's starting to become unreliable. Liao Xing seriously thought about it. If that's the case, it's fine if it's a girl, but if it's a boy, he carefully glanced at Yi Fei Li. Yi Fei Li was on the verge of exploding, shouting, look at those dead people. Which of them reincarnated? No one reincarnated. They're all going to suffer in hell for eternity. He stood up and loudly declared, I definitely won't let her go. Gu Qingshan patted his shoulder and confirmed, I won't let your girlfriend go. Don't worry. Liao Xing was also shocked and said, we're just joking, don't worry. It was now that Yi Fei Li was able to hold it in. You're not going to find a ghost to take a look at? Zhang Youngho asked. Gu Qingshan answered, I was the one who saved Yi Fei Li's girlfriend. Other than her, all the other ghosts in this world have been devoured by the frozen hell. Then that's it. Zhang Youngho shrugged. There's no way to get any concrete information. An unknown enemy is the scariest. You don't know their background. You don't know what they're going to turn into at this point. Gu Qingshan's phone rang. He opened it and immediately answered. How is it? Is your inheritance ceremony over? He asked. My location? This is... Gu Qingshan looked at Zhang Youngho. Zhang Youngho quickly gave him an address. Gu Qingshan then told him the address. He quickly hung up. Liao Xing glared at him. It's a woman, Zhang Youngho answered. It's not Anna, Yi Fei Li said. She seems to be very concerned about you, Gu Qingshan. They were sitting so close to each other. How could a device like a phone not be heard by the three of them? Not to mention Yi Fei Li and Zhang Youngho. Even Liao Xing's hearing became sharper after he started his cultivation, able to catch the sound from the speaker. It's Su Sher, Gu Qingshan said. Su Sher, one of the 9 lords. The new lord of the Su family, Zhang Youngho said. The other two spoke at the same time. They winked at each other. Thanks to Zhang Youngho's big mouth, they both know that the first mobile mech Gu Qingshan made was given to a girl. That's a legendary figure. They've only ever heard of her, never seen her in person. She wants to come here to find me, saying it's urgent, saying so. Gu Qingshan's expression was a bit worried. Hell is slowly descending, and now Su Sher is hurriedly coming to find me. What's going on? Did something happen? The other 3 looked at Gu Qingshan, noticing his worry. Gu Qingshan very rarely showed such an expression. Perhaps it's not something normal. Thinking that, they immediately changed their attitude. Liao Xing was the first to speak. Should I open up a global warp network to get her here quickly? No. She's coming from the North Pole. There's no war point nearby. Not to mention, she's using the Blazing Angel to fly. She'll arrive very quickly, Gu Qingshan replied. Yi Fei Li licked her lips. If there's a need to fight, count me, and Zhang Youngho spoke in a low voice. Let's see what's going on first. We'll come up with a plan according to the situation. Gu Qingshan nodded, feeling a bit warm inside. At this point, his hollow brain suddenly lit up. Gu Qingshan glanced at it, then spoke without hesitation. Connect, a screen appeared. Fiery red hair, fair skin, beautiful eyes. Anna was holding a bottle of liquor in her hand, her face flushed red from drinking too much, looking at the screen with intoxicated eyes. At this point, she connected to Gu Qingshan's hollow brain and made a video call. Calling me at this time, did something happen? Gu Qingshan asked. Anna was obviously surprised by the situation here. It's the middle of the night, and the 4 of you are still drinking? She looked at them and asked. Liao Xing scoffed. It's the middle of the night. Aren't you still drinking? Anna ignored him and spoke to Gu Qingshan. I have a choice to make, and this choice is very important to me. So I want to ask your opinion. Tell me. I'm listening. Gu Qingshan became serious. My family's inheritance is a very strange black box. I heard that the death's relic was taken from this box, Anna said. Gu Qingshan nodded. Anna continued. But this box, only the first head of our family has ever opened it, so I'm hesitating whether or not I should try it myself, Gu Shan asked. If you try, there'll be a price to pay, right? This is the lost inheritance of the Medici clan. In the past life, all traces of it were lost after Anna's death. No one knows what it is. That's right, there'll be a price. Is the price serious? Anna was about to answer, but suddenly stopped, because someone knocked on the door from Gu Shan's side. It's already so late. Someone's here? Anna was surprised. Liao Xing, Yifei Li, and Zhang Young-ho all had strange expressions on their faces. Liao Xing muttered in a low voice. Compared to hell, I feel like he's at the edge of hell right now. Without waiting for anyone to open the door, it was blown open. Within the intense wind, a beautiful girl with bright eyes and sharp teeth flew in. I'm sorry, there's no time. My time is almost up, the girl loudly apologized. It was Su Cher. The distance between the North Pole and the mountaintop mansion was too far, and she was delayed by the protector, so she only had less than 1 minute left. She has to do it. Shuer, what's the situation? Gu Shan asked in a low voice. He raised his hand. The Earth Sword and Chao Yin's sword stood on either side, silently hovering in the air. Gu Shan has never seen Su Cher so flustered before. Time is almost up. What does that mean? And Su Cher is a bit different from before. Her black hair had turned into long silver hair. What exactly happened to her body? Gu Shan couldn't help but feel anxious. As soon as the others saw Gu Shan using her weapon, they felt a chill down their spines. Liao Xing turned on his hollow brain, quickly tapped on it, and muttered, "Warp bomb." A blood-red glow appeared around Yi Fei Li's body as a pair of fearsome bone spikes sprouted. He cautiously stared at the door. Zhang Young-ho sat still. At some point, he was already holding a cold, gleaming dagger in each of his hands. Su Cher was smart to begin with, so seeing everyone's reaction, she immediately understood. While loudly saying, "I'm fine," she rushed in front of Gu Shan. "I have something I have to give you," Su Cher breathed heavily. She glanced at the two swords next to Gu Shan and took out the blood-red scroll from her chest pocket. The powerful scroll that came from Lord Bloodcloak. God's moment of emptiness. She put the scroll into Gu Shan's hand and looked straight into Gu Shan's eyes. "This is the most precious thing I have right now. I hope that it can replace me and stay by your side. When you're in danger, it will help you." After saying that, Su Cher sighed in relief. Going against her own will, binding herself to the system, traveling through 2 worlds, flying at full speed from the North Pole back to the Federation in just half an hour, all for the sake of giving this blood-red scroll. And now, the scroll is in Gu Shan's hands. There was only so much he could do. Next, I need to choose my own path and become stronger. Only by becoming stronger will I be able to prevent that fated ending from happening again. Su Cher glanced at the system UI. 10 seconds left. There's still time to defeat an important opponent. She gathered her courage and lightly hugged Gu Shan. Turning around, Su Cher looked at the stunned Anna on the screen and giggled like a bell. She muttered, "What? So you're no longer with him?" Her laughter was especially carefree. In fact, it was even more carefree than when she defeated Isa. "What's so great about that?" Anna begrudgingly shouted. At this point, everyone else held their breaths and opened their eyes wide to watch this. Yi Fei Li spread her wings, originally ready to fight, but now she didn't even dare to move, afraid that she disturbed this wonderful moment. Liao Xing squinted his eyes, comparing the two of them. Zhang Young-ho calmed down a bit. He kicked a secret compartment on the floor, apparently dispelling something. Anna angrily turned off the hollow brain. The last sound came from the speaker. It was the sound of a bottle breaking. Gu Shan was holding a blood-red scroll in her hand, a warm, fragrant jade in her chest. His lips twitched, preparing to ask about the situation. Suddenly, a screen of light appeared. Su Cher disappeared without a trace. Before Gu Shan could even say anything, the person in his arms had already disappeared. He stood still, stunned. Chapter 416. Without any warning, Su Cher disappeared in front of everyone. What's going on? Liao Xing jumped up and rushed to Gu Qingshan's side. He carefully sensed the change in space and exclaimed in shock. This isn't warp. How did she disappear? Gu Qingshan looked down at the blood-red scroll in his hand. A few lines of glowing text appeared on the War God UI. God's moment of emptiness, description, an automatic triggering high-level scroll. When the enemy is about to unleash a fatal attack, the enemy's mind will suddenly go blank for 3 seconds. Unlike everyone else, Gu Qingshan knows what's good and what's not. Such a scroll must have come from an extremely powerful God's chosen. Normally, no matter if it's a card, a scroll, or anything else that a God's chosen created, they can only be used by the God's chosen themselves. Only the most powerful God's chosen are allowed to give their abilities to others for them to use. And Su Cher was able to obtain such a God's chosen scroll. Just now, she disappeared by entering the game. Did she already enter the game? Gu Qingshan's heart skipped a beat. Unfortunately, Su Cher had already left and traveled to another world. Which world did she go to? If it was before, Gu Qingshan would have thought that she had entered the cultivation world. But as his vision has increased, he now knows that there are many worlds out there. So Su Cher's current whereabouts are a mystery. If that's the case, he can only wait for her to return to find out the truth. Seeing how hurried Su Cher was, she must have been in a state where she had no choice but to enter the other world. Did she specifically come back just to give me a scroll? Gu Qingshan felt warm inside. He silently put the scroll away and told everyone, I think I know what happened just now, so you don't need to worry. I'll tell you when she returns and confirm the situation. Is it related to cultivation? Yi Fei Li asked. Pretty much. You could say so, Gu Qingshan half-heartedly replied. Right now, just the existence of spirit energy is already hard for them to accept. The matters between worlds were too shocking. He was afraid that they wouldn't be able to accept it if he told them. In particular, Liao Xing was going crazy. He kept muttering, science is finished. Gu Qingshan planned to choose a suitable time to announce this matter. When they heard that it had something to do with spiritual power, they immediately understood. After they started cultivating, they gradually gained some insights of their own. Regardless of whether it was Yi Fei Li, Zhang Yongho, or even Liao Xing, they were all top-notch figures in the world, so they naturally understood how powerful this power was. So that's how it is spirit energy can be used to create formations, or even warp between two places. I remember you saying that before, Liao Xing said. That's right, when your cultivation is higher, I can show you the relevant information on formations, Gu Qingshan said. Good. Liao Xing slowly regained his composure. Gu Qingshan secretly heaved a sigh of relief. If Liao Xing went crazy, then it would be troublesome. Seems like there's nothing else. Come, let's continue drinking, Zhang Yongho said. He began to pour the liquor. Everyone silently sat down. Gu Qingshan said, I'm sorry, but your door is probably broken. It's fine, Zhang Yongho said. Yi Fei Li asked, what about Anna? She's currently at the height of her anger. Gu Qingshan was exceptionally calm and answered, if a living person were to provoke her, they'd probably die right away. Everyone thought that was true, so they didn't bring up this topic again. As soon as they took their first sip, Gu Qingshan's hollow brain lit up. Sir, good night. Sorry to disturb you, but there's something I need to report. Impartial Goddess spoke. Tell me, enough things have happened tonight already. There's no need to worry about one more, Gu Qingshan said. A 30-man squad of professionists was completely wiped out. Please take a look at the battle log, Impartial Goddess spoke. The screen turned on. 30 professionists were carrying out a mission issued by the Federation military, searching for dead people in a frozen river. A deep blue cluster of light suddenly appeared. It gave off an intense suction force, pulling the professionists into the air, taking away their lives while they tried their best to resist. They fell to the ground, shattering into pieces of ice. That's lifeless. Yi Fei Li asked doubtfully. Yes, the ability obtained from the fourth-stage water elemental awakening. Lifeless, Gu Qingshan replied. From the looks of it, it seems to be able to do that very easily, Zhang Yongho commented. Gu Qingshan asked, when did this happen? Impartial Goddess answered, Just now, when they were clearing a frozen river in the Federation, this never-before-seen light monster appeared. Gu Qingshan sighed and ordered, "Have a military retreat. Yi Fei Li, come with me. Liao Xing, arrange a warp point. Goddess, arrange a shuttle to pick us up at the warp point. Zhang Yungho, continue to take care of the President and Verona Empress's safety. Contact me immediately if anything happens. Let's go." The few of them immediately moved. When Gu Qingshan and Yi Fei Li acted at the same time, there weren't many people in this world who could stop them. The battle only lasted for a split second. After the blood-colored attack, a flying sword nailed the cluster of light to the ground. On the flying sword, sword chi continued to pour into the cluster of light, letting out a thunderous sound of impact. The cluster of light screamed in pain. All the light disappeared, revealing a corpse. Gu Qingshan and Yi Fei Li landed next to the corpse. Yi Fei Li asked, "This is the fiend kind you mentioned just now? A life form from another era?" Gu Qingshan held her Chao Yin sword and said, "It really is a fiend kind." The two of them stood in front of the monster's corpse and carefully examined it. A fiend kind, its body was about the same size as a human, but without any facial features. Its entire body was made from ice crystals that gave off a frigid air, while its body gave off a rotten stench of blood. Its corpse was slowly sinking into the ice. Even such a monster only managed to resist a few attacks before it was easily killed by the two of them. Attacking humans without hesitation, instantly killing a squad of 30 professionists. If all monsters are this strong, then it's quite scary, Yi Fei Li sighed. In the sky, two mechs landed. They cut off a chunk of ice, carrying the monster's corpse onto the ship. The monster will be sent into space. This was the only way to deal with the undead. Gu Qingshan said, "This is only a normal fiend kind. The truly powerful ones haven't appeared yet. Are they all like this?" "No, a few fiend kind are made from elements. The truly powerful ones aren't water elemental fiend kinds, but wind, lightning, fire, dark elemental fiend kinds. Are all fiend kinds made from elements?" "Not really. There are a few that even I don't know what they are," Gu Qingshan sighed, then continued. "Other than that, the monsters from the giant era haven't appeared yet, and there's still the era of chaos. Those are completely lawless, murderous monsters. We're in big trouble." Yi Fei Li crossed her arms and spoke with a worried expression. Gu Qingshan continued, "We need to immediately distribute the awakening bracelets to everyone, quickly entering the era of cultivation. Then unite all the countries before the frozen hell fully erupts to eliminate the monsters everywhere. Will that work?" "I think there's still a chance." "Then what are we waiting for? Let's go pick up Zhang Yungho. Then head to the Fuxi Empire. All the leaders are there, waiting to witness Verona's coronation. Let's go." The two of them flew up to the sky, heading towards the mountaintop mansion. Gu Qingshan silently looked at the human city in the distance. It was currently the middle of the night, so the city was silent. Although there was no sound, there were still bright lights illuminating the entire city, giving it a sense of peace. Perhaps this will be humanity's last moment of peace. Once the frozen hell fully descends, countless strange and unusual monsters will take over the city. If that's all, Gu Qingshan still has a plan. By mobilizing all of humanity to work together and do everything they can, there's a chance they can come up with a way to deal with the frozen hell. But a shadow was lurking in Gu Qingshan's mind, lingering, unable to get rid of it. Gu Qingshan felt more and more uneasy. It was an unconfirmed thought. If, other than the frozen hell, the other hells would also descend. Chapter 417. "You look so worried. What's the matter?" Yi Fei Li asked. "It's nothing." Gu Qingshan shook his head. "Guesses are just guesses. There's no need to say it out loud. But right now, I need to quickly increase my strength." The mountaintop mansion. Gu Qingshan had locked himself in his room. The Chaoyin sword was resting on his knees. "Come," Gu Qingshan muttered. The Chaoyin sword let out a woo-woo sound and went into his body. It flew into his thought sea and stood next to the earth sword. Gu Qingshan observed for a bit. Everything was normal. Finally, he could put the Chaoyin sword back into his thought sea. Almost at the same time, A few lines of glowing text appeared in Gu Qingshan's vision. You can now fuse the two swords into your thoughts. See Sword Saint Awakening Quest 2. Direct as one's own arm. Completed. Following is the third quest, Thousand Tempering 100 Refinement. Quest objective. Use the two flying swords to perform all the normal sword styles you know. Reading through the quest description, Gu Qingshan scowled. Not counting the secret arts, I know over 1,000 normal sword styles. Even if I perform them one by one, it'll probably take me a few days to complete this quest. He thought for a bit, then asked, System, my understanding of the sword has already surpassed the past life. Can I awaken by myself without relying on you? Ting. The system responded. This is the last part of your past life's memories. If you're willing to give up this memory, you can convert it into energy and immediately awaken. Otherwise, you'll have to awaken through a quest. The last part of my past life's memories. Are they all sword styles? Or is there something else that I haven't remembered yet? They're all sword styles, the system replied. Gu Qingshan calmed down. He asked, How long will the entire Sword Saint Awakening quest take to complete? Remaining quests, 98. With your current strength, you'll probably only need 2 months to complete them all, 98 quests. 2 months. Gu Qingshan almost fell off his bed. Indeed, to be able to recover his sword immortal cultivation in 2 months was already a very short period of time. But it's still not enough. In the real world, I was about to descend. On the other side of Shenwu world, I'm heading towards an unprecedentedly powerful world. How could they wait for 2 months? By the time he finished all the missions, it would be too late. He needed to improve his strength now. Gu Qingshan pondered for a moment and asked, Can't you make an exception for me? For example, I can rely on my own abilities to make another breakthrough, and then you can return all of the Sword Immortal sword arts to me? The system's voice was exceptionally serious. Only this time, you cannot break through on your own. Why? Because as a sword saint, you once killed a demon god from a future timeline, and that demon god was related to the fate of the world at a crucial moment. The system continued. This is the mark that space-time has placed on you. Once you lose this mark, something terrible will happen. Why is this happening? The space-time line is the measurement of the external state of the real world. If you were to return to the past from the future, then in that moment of space-time in the future, the world would lose your mass and energy. But that doesn't matter. When you return to the past, the law of the world will use your mark to recognize that you are still you. It will arrange a place for you at that point in the past to ensure that the overall mass and energy of the real world is conserved. However, if you lose this mark, the law of the world will no longer recognize you. It will use the current timeline to determine that you are a unique entity that doesn't belong to the world. If that happens, not only will the law of the world prepare a countermeasure against you, but the law of space-time that is related to the past and the future will also react accordingly. Perhaps the demon god will notice that you are a person without a destiny, or perhaps a second you will appear in the world. A second me? Gu Qingshan was surprised. Indeed, it will be an entity similar to you, because the most important mark that you left behind in the space-time line has disappeared, and you didn't die. This will cause the world to lose a part of your mass and energy. The law of the world will immediately create another similar you to ensure that the overall mass and energy of the world won't become chaotic. Furthermore, the law of space-time becoming chaotic will attract the attention of powerful divinities. As they love to do such things the most, they will definitely find you. Gu Qingshan asked, If what you're saying is true, the only thing that can mark me as myself is the event where I killed the demon god, as well as my strength and memories at that time? That is correct, Gu Qingshan sighed. It seems that using quest to become a sword saint is the safest way. Indeed, to ensure that the law of the world and the timeline remain normal, you only have 2 choices. 1. Use quest to retrieve your memories, grasp the sword saint sword styles, and become a sword saint. 2. Turn your memories into power and break through to become a sword saint. But you will lose those sword styles. Gu Qingshan fell silent. There's no time to complete the quest step by step. If I choose the second option, I'll use the sword styles from my past life in exchange for breaking through right away. That's a good idea. With my current understanding of swordsmanship, I've already surpassed my past life. I don't need those sword styles. As long as I become a sword saint, the power of my sword phantoms will greatly increase. I won't even need hand seals to control my swords. I only need a single thought. This way, my attack speed and technique changes will be several times faster than before. If I run into the black, cloaked skeleton again before it could even react, I would have already sliced it into a bone stick. Gu Qing Shan suddenly asked, "Can I temporarily put aside my swordsmanship and increase my realm first?" "You can't," the system resolutely answered. "Why not? This is the moment where you need to be the most cautious. You must first reach the exact same level of swordsmanship and personal cultivation as you did in your past life. Only then will you truly return, and nothing else. This way, you will completely blend into this timeline. From then on, space-time and fate will no longer pay attention to you. Even the demonic gods will no longer pay attention to you. What if I become a sainted in the future? Will I still be restricted in the same way? Because you weren't a sainted in the past life, you can do whatever you want after becoming a sainted. This will be your blank future, written by yourself." I understand. Gu Qing Shan no longer hesitated and said, "I don't need those sword styles anymore. I want a breakthrough right now. Are you sure?" "I'm sure." Following his declaration, a lot of notifications began to appear on the War God UI. Detected that the player has 2 extraordinary long swords. Detected user to be able to store them in their thoughts. See. Detected user to be able to use hand seals to control flying swords to attack. The most basic requirement for a sword saint awakening has been met. Beginning comparison of space-time traces. Confirming character traits. Final attempt to transfer character's memories from the previous timeline. Transfer successful. Completely close off the reverse timeline passage. Completely sever all connection to the timeline. Completely erase all relevant information. Gu Qing Shan silently watched this. Even though it was just a few words, he felt extremely shocked. His back was covered in layers of cold sweat. This was an instinctive reaction from his sixth sense. As soon as he closed his eyes, he felt like he was walking on a tightrope at the edge of a cliff. And now, it was the final stretch of this tightrope. He could faintly sense that this was the most dangerous moment. As long as he doesn't make any mistakes and isn't discovered, his reincarnation shouldn't be a problem at all. The wait felt like a century. Ting, you've been completely reincarnated. Time flow normal. Spatial fluctuations normal. No abnormalities detected. This is a perfect rebirth. Gu Qing Shan sighed in relief. A safe landing. A few more lines of text appeared from the system. You've used up all of the Sword Saint's memories to obtain the power to awaken. You've awakened. You've become a Sword Saint. Gu Qing Shan blankly stared at the last line of text. I've finally returned. No more worries. This is the initial state of a Sword Saint. He opened his palm, then clenched his fist. A familiar yet unfamiliar power filled his body. There's no need to search for anything else. No need to break through again. This is my original power. To fight against the imminent danger, I need this power. This is the peak of my cultivation. From now on, I can no longer rely on my previous experiences. The long path of cultivation from now on will be completely new, a path I've never walked before. Gu Qing Shan took a deep breath. With a thought, 2 swords appeared from the void of space. Without needing any hand seals, the earth sword swung by itself, performing a full set of Kai Shan style in just a few breaths worth of time. The Chao Yin sword turned into a blur, performing the wind/style back and forth. The 2 swords were like agile birds, flying back and forth in the room. Come, Gu Qing Shan muttered. Chapter 4:18. Gu Qing Shan took out the 7-colored fragrance bag, infused his inner sight into it, and began to search for the Ascended Realm scripture. The spirit energy fluctuation from breaking through to the next realm has settled down, so it's time to break through to Ascended Realm middle stage. Suddenly, his expression changed. Inside the 7-colored fragrance bag, a lot of things were piled up haphazardly. Only his Qin Xiaolo's and Xiao Xiao's cultivation scriptures and items were neatly arranged. Gu Qing Shan took something out. It was a jade tag with the word Shan written on it. As he infused it with spirit energy, 100 Flowers Fairy's voice came from the jade tag. Choosing an ascended realm scripture is extremely important, directly related to the difficulty of sainted realm. Qing Shan. After a long time of searching, I finally found this Azure Dragon Ascended Realm scripture to be the most suitable for you since the beginning of time. There have been 37 cultivators who were fortunate enough to obtain this scripture. 9 of them managed to reach Sainted Realm. 6 of them were sword cultivators and martial cultivators. I've also studied this scripture and found it to be very suitable for sword cultivators. Qing Shan, you must seriously study this scripture. It will be very beneficial for your sainted realm in the future. The voice disappeared. Gu Qing Shan's lips curled up a bit, showing a faint smile on his face. In this life, the most correct thing I've done is to join the Baihua sect. 100 Flowers Fairy and Xie Dao Ling treat their disciples like family. Because of that, she's also someone I have to protect. Gu Qing Shan infused his inner sight into the jade tag and quickly read through it. At the same time, a few lines of glowing text appeared on the War God UI. Discovered Cultivation Scripture, Azure Dragon Ascended Art. To fully comprehend this scripture requires 200 soul points. Would the user be willing to pay? Yes, Gu Qing Shan answered. A warm flow flowed from the jade tag into his arm, spread to his limbs and bones, then finally converged in his thought sea. In just a few moments, Gu Qing Shan had fully comprehended the Azure Dragon Ascended Art. He closed his eyes to experience it, seriously going through every part of the cultivation process. After making sure that there were no mistakes, Gu Qing Shan took out a top-grade essence gathering pill and swallowed it. Next, he began to break through to the soul formation intermediate stage. With a complete understanding of the cultivation technique, he was like a cultivator who had cultivated to the late stage of the deity transformation realm a long time ago, but had dispersed part of his cultivation and started all over again. This was a familiar process. Throughout the latter half of the night, the aura on Gu Qing Shan's body is getting stronger and stronger, illuminating the whole room like it's daytime. The night passed, and the first rays of the sun rose from the horizon. The light around Gu Qing Shan's body slowly retracted and went back into his body. He opened his eyes. He had reached the mid-divine transformation realm. At this moment, whether it was his cultivation realm or his attainments in swordsmanship, he was no different from when he was at his peak in his previous life. Should he continue to break through to the soul formation late stage? Gu Qing Shan thought about it carefully and decided not to break through to the soul formation late stage right away. After all, the next realm is sainted. This was a significant watershed. Countless cultivators are stuck at soul formation for their entire lives, unable to break through to sainted. But right now, his spirit energy waves are still fluctuating. His body still hasn't gotten used to the power of soul formation middle stage. If he tries to break through to the next realm right now, it'll be very easy for him to get hurt. So it's better to wait for his spirit energy waves to stabilize before trying to break through. Sir, it's time for breakfast. Please eat on time to ensure that your body receives sufficient nutrients. Impartial goddess voice came from the hollow brain. Very well. Please prepare a shuttle for me. I'll be heading to Fushi this morning to observe Arona's coronation ceremony. Don't worry, the shuttle has been prepared. The Holy Church. 7 holy apostles knelt on one knee. 7 holy lights were emitting from their bodies, gathering together to form a giant pillar of light. The entire Holy Church was enveloped in the holy light. A few moments later, a person appeared on the throne of the Holy Church. A pair of faintly discernible wings, a halo of light above her head. Wearing a pure white robe, her face covered by a veil. The Pope has returned. She slowly sat down on the throne and spoke. Unless it's urgent, you are not allowed to contact me. I'm sure you all know this. The 7 holy apostles all nodded. The Pope looked at them and silently sighed. Seems like something really did happen. I've failed. Right now, I can only wander around the border of the Sea of Corpses, unable to enter Fog Isle. But I'm not willing. I made so many preparations, spent so much effort, only to end up in this situation because of a little girl. Detestable, but I haven't completely lost yet. That girl must be a person of this world. I need to think of a way to find her in reality and kill her. As long as she dies, the system will naturally return to my embrace. As for now, I need to see what happened first. She asked, "Very well. If you already know and still call me back, I want to know what exactly happened. The Federation military officer who caused a ruckus at Madame Dupont's banquet has completely disappeared," Great Holy Apostle Hurt reported. The Pope's voice lightly came. "Just because of that?" Hurt knew that she was already on the verge of anger, so he hurriedly said, "No, it's this world that has a problem. Hell has descended, hell?" The Pope repeated, a hint of surprise in his voice. "That's right, the frozen hell." Hurt sighed in relief and said. He then told her everything that happened recently. The Pope silently sat for a while, then sighed. "The Fushi Emperor, I actually understand him very well. Unfortunately, he chose the wrong person to rely on. Hell has a problem." The Pope muttered. She rested her chin on her hand and fell into thought. "Seems like I was right to come back. This world situation is rapidly changing, so I have to personally take charge. With this world's current strength, it's almost impossible to go against hell. I need to leave as soon as possible. But this place is already very well constructed. Do I really have to give it up?" She looked at the church, a spacious, brightly lit hall, a group of loyal subordinates that she'd just raised. Sunlight shined on the painted window at the top of the hall. The light and the patterns created a solemn atmosphere. Tranquil, warm, everything was in order. Not just the church, but the entire country now belongs to me. I really can't bear to leave right now. I spent so much effort to obtain this body, take over this church, this country, and now I have to run away? Especially at a time like this, when I've just been kicked out of Fog Isle. Wandering the universe is a very painful thing to do. Wandering the infinite worlds is even more miserable. The Pope stood up, clasping her hands behind her back as she paced back and forth in the church. "That's right. The most important thing is that little girl. Once she returns to this world, I'll definitely find her and kill her. If she dies, there might still be a chance. That's why I can't give up on this world yet. As for hell, from the looks of it, no one knows for sure what kind of situation hell is currently in. Before the situation is clear, if I leave rashly, I'll lose too much. Maybe Huang Quan only has a small problem. Hell's abnormal situation might disappear very soon. Then I'll just wait and see." The Pope went silent for a bit, then asked, "Has Verona become the Empress?" "She has. Please take a look at the screen," Hurt said as a screen popped up. On the screen was a splendid palace. Fushi's capital, the royal palace. Following the traditional etiquette of an emperor's coronation, Verona was escorted by her entourage, riding a carriage pulled by 8 white horses towards the empire's holy church. Inside the church, the archbishop, the most important officials of the empire, as well as the world's leaders were all waiting to witness the ceremony. Verona was wearing a dark red royal robe, holding the king's scepter in one hand and a golden apple in the other, representing her full authority as the emperor. She swore a solemn oath to the sleeping death god statue in the middle of the church. "I will protect the empire for the benefit, happiness, and dignity of all citizens. I will." Seeing this, the Pope softly chuckled and said, "Interesting. The empire's holy church was built before the Fushi emperor got married. This was to marry Verona from the Medici clan. Verona Medici was a cardinal of the holy church when she was young. To please her, the Fushi emperor publicly promised to build a grand holy church cathedral in the Fushi capital. This cathedral represents the Holy Empire, representing the faith of the holy church that Verona protects. But it doesn't represent the current holy church." The Pope silently fell into thought. She was lucky enough to enter this body because there was a huge problem with this body. It was a coincidence that allowed her to be so lucky. Unfortunately, when she entered this body, the original Pope was already nowhere to be found, so she didn't get any of her memories. On the screen, Verona was still kneeling in front of the sleeping death god, continuously making solemn promises. "This will take a few minutes." The Pope's gaze turned around and locked onto the statue. The sleeping death god. It said that the death god protects the Medici clan. But in the world she knows of, she's never heard of such a monster. She originally wanted to slowly explore it after taking down the royal family. Unfortunately, she didn't get any valuable information. She only learned two things. First, the death god has appeared in history before. Second, it's currently sleeping. But what exactly is the death god? Why does the Medici clan worship it? No one knows the answer. It's said that only the Holy Empire's king and the real pope know the answer to these secrets. The only thing that can prove its existence is a death god's relic, a life substitution contract. This was given to Anna by the Holy Empire's king. I've sent out quite a few people, but still couldn't catch Anna. Thinking that, the Pope's mood became worse. Did Verona invite us? She did, ah? The Pope's expression changed a bit. This woman isn't simple. I've killed almost everyone in the Medici clan, yet she's still inviting me to the Empire's ceremony. Does she really think I won't dare to attack her? No, she must have something else in mind. Seems like I really need to come back. I can't just leave this place alone for a while. The Pope asked, "Is the Fushi's banquet at noon?" Yes, the Pope stood up. "Come with me. See what Fushi and the Federation are planning." Understood. The shuttle has already been prepared. Ready to go, Hurt respectfully replied. I really want to know how Verona will face me, the Pope said. She glanced at the coronation ceremony on the screen one last time. She felt an inexplicable sense of irritation. In the air, a suffocating force seemed to be manifesting. Turn it off. There's nothing to see, the Pope ordered. Yes, let's go. The 7 holy apostles all stood up and respectfully welcomed the Pope outside. Halfway there, the Pope suddenly stopped. Something's not right. It's not my problem, she muttered. Your Grace, what is it? Hurt asked. Metal, wood, water, fire, earth, wind, lightning, light, dark, sound. All 10 elements are stirring. They're filled with killing intent. The Pope silently sensed her surroundings. Her expression slowly changed. She shouted, "Hurry! Order everyone to be on guard. Prepare to face the enemy." Yes, the 7 holy apostles all turned on their hollow brains and gave out orders to their subordinates. At some unknown point, the sound of explosions could be heard from afar. The Pope waved her hand. 10 cards appeared from the void of space and landed in her hand. She spoke seriously. Come with me. Let's see what kind of deity this is. Hurt smirked. Someone dares to cause trouble in the Holy Empire's capital. I'm going to dash. Boom. The ground shook. The roof of the Holy Empire Cathedral was blown off. Chapter 419. The Pope and the 7 holy apostles all looked up. The balls of light scattered to reveal what they were. Humans? No, they're not. The Pope squints her eyes and carefully examined them. Inside the balls of light were humanoid monsters. The reason why they're sure they're not humans is because their bodies are exactly the same as humans, but they don't have any facial features. Elemental power revolved around them, easily gathering as they moved. The 10 powerful elemental attacks rained down from the sky, causing the entire city to be engulfed in smoke. Great Holy Apostle Hurt's expression also changed. As an experienced fighter, he quickly noticed the crux of the problem. Their control over elemental power is several times stronger than any elementalist, he shouted. They're like the masters of the elements, Cardinal Kidd also commented. In the sky, the faceless monsters all gave off different elemental lights. Each of them can perfectly control an element. The fiend kind. The fiend kind of the frozen hell had finished gathering and began to attack the city. The entire Holy Empire's capital was their target. The cathedral was the first to be attacked because of how grand and eye-catching the cathedral was, attracting over a dozen balls of light. Mobilize all professionists. All of you go and lead the battle quickly, the Pope loudly ordered. The 7 holy apostles commanded their subordinates to face the monsters in the sky. Almost instantly, the battle entered its most intense phase. The fiend kind can perfectly control the elements. Their attacks are several times stronger than normal professionists. They can also fly. Since the fiend kind are in the sky, normal professionists can't attack them. The Holy Church mobilized all of their mechs. However, The Saints' mobile armors were outdated mechanical weapons. The fiend kind outnumber the mechs. They can fly freely and attack as they please. The entire Holy Church's army fell into a tough battle. In just a few dozen minutes, the fiend kind slowly gained the upper hand. They were approaching the Holy Empire Cathedral. The Pope flew into the sky and personally fought, killing 7 to 8 fiend kind at once. This enraged all the fiend kind. A few hundred fiend kind gathered together, firing wave after wave of elemental attacks. The entire cathedral was leveled to the ground. Even the powerful Pope wouldn't dare to face such a terrifying attack. She's only one person. Using an invisibility card, the Pope temporarily avoided the attack. The battle continued. Since the fiend kind couldn't find a target, they vented their anger on those who resisted. Time slowly passed. Even after the deaths of thousands of sacred troops and 2 holy apostles, the Pope was still hiding in the church. She did not attack again. She quietly hid to the side, carefully observing the scene in the sky. Demon spirit race. They seem to be existences from the previous era, but there is still the aura of departed souls on their bodies. It seems like they really did crawl out from hell, she muttered. Now that I can't go to Fog Isle, if I can't protect this place, I'll have no choice but to wander the universe or other worlds. Great Holy Apostle Hurt was covered in blood as he reported, "We've tried everything we could, but their numbers keep increasing. It's hard for us to kill them all." The Pope gazed at the sky. The elemental attacks of the demon dwellers were stacked on top of each other. As their numbers continued to increase, hundreds of elemental energies fused together to form an extremely powerful spell attack. Even she was unable to withstand such an attack. The church had completely collapsed. Sunlight poured down, passing through the veil and falling on the Pope's face. She suddenly laughed. These days, she had been wandering on the ocean of corpses, holding her breath. Who would have thought that he would be forced into such a state after returning? There was nowhere to retreat. She couldn't take it anymore. "Hurt, are you afraid of death?" The Pope asked. "For the Holy Church, I'm willing to sacrifice everything," Hurt answered. "For the Holy Church? Why not for me?" The Pope was a bit disappointed. Hurt was a bit surprised, then answered, "For you and the Holy Church, it's the same." The Pope stayed silent for a bit, then ordered, "Go, find the ascetic Ivan." Hurt noticed something and spoke. "Ivan is a fool with no brains. If there's anything you need, please tell me directly. I'm willing to sacrifice everything for the Holy Church. No, the following mission isn't suitable for you. Go find Ivan. Immediately." Understood, Hurt couldn't help but agree. The ascetic Ivan quickly came to the Pope. "Hurt, go and take charge of the battle," the Pope ordered. "Yes." Hurt retreated. Before he left, he glanced worriedly at his little brother. "Please instruct me." Ivan knelt down on one knee. The Pope walked step by step in front of him, whispering, "Ivan, you are ascetic. Your soul is purer than anyone else. So I will grant you a weapon," she asked. "Now let me ask you, are you willing to fight for me?" "I am," Ivan excitedly shouted. He remembered that the Pope had once bestowed a mystical whip to Cardinal Kidd. The whip was able to turn into the void together with Kidd. It was very strange. And now, at this crucial moment, the Pope is finally going to grant me a weapon. While Ivan was thinking, a card suddenly appeared in front of him. On the card, there was a black vortex. At the center of the vortex, a hand reached out, as if politely asking for a handshake. But as he looked at it a bit more, he felt that this hand carried a bit of madness, like a drowning man trying to grab onto anything he could. "Take it," the Pope said. Ivan hesitated for a moment. He suddenly had a bad feeling in his heart. "Take it. This is an order," the Pope urged him. "Yes." Ivan bit the bullet and took the card. Seeing him take the card, the Pope took a few steps back. She silently stared at Ivan, her voice full of fear and sorrow. "Don't blame me. Don't blame me. I also have no way out." Ivan's face revealed a puzzled expression. "Your Holiness," perhaps because the other party was about to die, the Pope said a few more words. "That's right. Even I don't know what will happen after I use this contract card, but I don't want to experience the endless wandering of the world. You have to understand me. Ivan was even more puzzled after hearing these baffling words. When he was about to ask something, the card in his hand changed. A giant hand reached out from the card, grabbed him, and pulled him in. AR. Intermittent screams of agony. Chilling chewing noises. Two hellish noises overlapped, giving one the impression that a person was being slowly eaten. A few moments later, a satisfied sigh came from the card. HM. A pure soul purified by ascetic cultivation, as well as a bloody and cruel killing intent. Even the 9 hells, it would be a rare delicacy. Yes, you're finally willing to form a contract with me, and even gave me such a delicious contract gift. I'm very satisfied. The Pope, or rather, respectfully bowed and replied, as long as you're satisfied, since the contract has been established. Tell me your request, the voice said. I will raise your flag and use your name to stop a war, ISA said. Chapter 420. Receiving the other party's permission, ISA was overjoyed. Only such an existence can ignore the number of enemies and end this calamity. Although she'll have to pay a lot more in the future, ISA can only worry about what's in front of her. From the void of space, a card appeared. On the card was a burning fiend, holding a flag with a ram in one hand and a horn in the other. Demon God's Order. Description: this card represents the will of the demon god. It is watching over your world, allowing you to use its name to do things. ISA held the card in her hand and looked at the sky. The fiend kind have gotten used to humanity's way of attacking. They're even more adept at killing those who resist. The paladins are in a precarious situation. Too many people have died. A part of their camp is already on the verge of collapse. The war was slipping into a one-sided situation. In just a few moments, any humans who resist will be massacred by the fiend kind in the sky. At this time, a holy light attracted everyone's attention. The lucky survivors of the paladins all turned to look. The Pope spread her holy wings, standing on top of the ruins of the church. It's the Pope. We're saved. Everyone's eyes were filled with tears as they shouted. The great holy apostle Hurt looked around, but couldn't find any trace of his brother. Ivan, he fell to the ground, dejected. The vast and holy radiance embraced the Pope as he ascended into the sky, like a newborn star at dawn. She held the 10 cards in her hand. Stop, she shouted. The paladins who were still resisting stopped their attacks. The fiend kind noticed something was wrong, so they also stood in midair, cautiously looking at her. In the name of the Lord of evil spirits, I will give you one last chance. End this war and never invade again, the Pope declared. As soon as she said so, she activated the Demon God's Order. The cards scattered into fragments of starlight. The Covenant card was activated. In her hand, the remaining 9 cards suddenly jumped up and spoke at the same time. See my flag, listen to my command, and obey my will. 9 palm-sized cards speaking such a dignified statement. It was a bit ridiculous. The fiend kind exchanged glances. One of the fiend kind waved his hand and shot out a sharp golden ray, beheading a few Sacred Army soldiers. The fiend kind looked at the Pope provocatively. The Pope chuckled. She spoke to the 9 cards. They disobeyed your orders. I request your presence. Yes, the 9 cards replied together. The Pope's hands moved quickly, arranging the 9 cards into a picture. These cards were all strange torsos and organs. After being pieced together, the 10 cards grew a little bigger, forming a giant card. It didn't even look like a card, but more like a miniature mural. In the mural, a handsome young man stood on the back of a ram. He held a white rose in one hand and a spear in the other. There were blood-colored feathers on his back and a black halo above his head. Around this handsome young man, 18 gray, evil spirits surrounded him. They had their heads lowered, as if they were obeying orders. The Pope faced the giant card and prayed with both hands. She whispered, Cursed fallen angel, master of evil spirits, king of 9 hells, incomparable Asmodeus, I summon you to share a rare spirit. The giant card turned into a puff of white smoke. The voices of the 9 people spoke at once. Although there is a contract, you have disturbed my slumber. As compensation, You must accompany me in eternal night for a few days. Isa avoided their words and carefully spoke. According to the contract, I will share these rare spirits from before the arrow with you. The white smoke scattered. A figure appeared. It was the handsome young man on the card. As if he was under some sort of restriction, his figure was illusory, almost like a transparent illusion. He didn't have any weapons, nor did he have a mount or followers. The handsome young man glanced around. The ferocious fiend kind who attacked him before tried unleashing a golden thread. The golden thread cut through space and appeared in front of the handsome young man in the blink of an eye. "Fools," the handsome young man said. The golden thread disappeared in front of him and reappeared behind the ferocious fiend kind. The fiend kind was cut in half by his own attack. This enraged all the fiend kinds. They roared in anger and charged at the handsome young man. The handsome young man sighed and said, "A bunch of ignorant lambs who can't even see through the law of causality. Even this kind of trash, you summoned me here. I'm starting to question the contract with you." "That's not it, Asmodeus. They all came from hell," Isa hurriedly said. "Hell?" Asmodeus smiled. "They don't have the aura of hell on them." He suddenly stopped and turned his gaze back to the fiend kinds. "I understand. You're saying that they came from a hell that this world is connected to." While they were talking, the fiend kinds had already charged forward, roaring and attacking. Asmodeus yawned and muttered, "All that offend me is blasphemy against purgatory." As soon as he said so, all the fiend kinds froze in the air. They didn't move at all, including their expressions and movements. Everything was frozen at the same time. Asmodeus flew forward and lightly cut off a fiend kind's head. He poked his finger into the other party's neck, dipped it in some blood, and licked it. Asmodeus was intoxicated. Beautiful dead souls, undying dead souls. I can feel the power of the law of Huang Quan, but dead souls appearing in the human realm. Isn't that strange? How interesting. There must be something wrong here. Could it be the gods and demons of hell here ran into some sort of trouble? Asmodeus' expression turned grim. He spoke, "Isa, prepare 1,000 living people as a sacrifice. I want my clone to descend into this world to help you." "As you wish, Sir," Isa replied. "You did well this time. I will use the power of the 9 hells to increase the limit of your God's chosen card by 1. "Thank you." Sir Isa was overjoyed. "Let's go," Asmodeus said. "But what about them?" Isa hesitantly asked. She pointed at the thousands of fiend kinds in the sky. "The law of Huang Quan in your world has gone out of control. Their souls are all in my hands." Asmodeus opened his palm. Countless sprites of light appeared in his hand. "An unexpected harvest, isn't it?" He chuckled. "You really are impressive," Isa sincerely said. "Let's not waste any more time and quickly prepare the sacrifices. I want to see what exactly is going on." "Yes, Sir." Asmodeus saying so, Isa hurriedly descended and began to make the necessary arrangements. Asmodeus stopped in midair and glanced at Isa without anyone noticing. "A precious soul that went to Fog Isle. This is what I've always wanted. As for what's going on in this world, I don't care. Something that could cause a god and demon who ruled over a hell to have problems, it must be something extremely serious. Even if I'm a master of the 9 hells, I shouldn't get involved in such a terrifying and unknown matter. Using sacrifices to descend into this world. As soon as I get Isa, I'll immediately leave. This is what I need to do." You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.